And just as play gets underway in the second semi-final, we thought we'd come on live as well. How are you, Noops?
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. So nice to see you, Steve. I don't know what Spread and Jorge are doing. Jorge has some sort of family excuse, and Spread is hanging out with some other people, I think. So, whatever. But it's a great day. We have two of the better women's tennis matches we've had in a long time. We have two of the better men's tennis matches tomorrow, I think, that we've had in a long time. One of the things I was talking to you and some other people about, and I know you didn't get a chance to do too much research, but is this arguably the best four semifinals we've had in a long time?
I think in terms of variety, I mean, it's just nice to have these matches come to this point and you're just not sure who's going to win. You think back to, the last decade of, particularly on the men's side, it's Djokovic, it's Nadal, it's Federer. Now we've actually got genuine, people looking for edges and trying to find, who's going to make the most of this opportunity. It would be a little bit amusing if Carreño Busta was the one to stop the next generation of players coming through to take a slam in the men's side. It's going to be an interesting couple of days overall, and I think we got off to a fantastic start with that first semi-final between Osaka and Brady.
We really did, but I'm going to just stop for a second. Serena Williams has just played three of the more impressive points she's played all tournament. This is the first time, and I didn't watch Vika Azarenka's, or is it Vika or Vika? I always say Vika. People tell me it's Vika. Sorry, it's not Vikings in the United States, so I assume it was, anyway. But Vika is doing pretty well. Sorry, Vika. I just actually corrected myself and then uncorrected myself. I didn't see her first set against Mahova, but Serena Williams just played the three best points against Azarenka I've seen all tournament.
And I guess one question that I got asked a couple of times in the last 24 hours, and it has come to fruition in the end, is
there's a break.
Does the roof being closed help Serena here?
My point was that it actually helped all four players tonight. I was excited that the roof was going to be closed because again, to maybe go out on hyperbole, I think that we have arguably and maybe the four best women tennis players on earth right now. You sent me a GIF of Simona Halep, I think, when I sent that to you, but she hasn't been playing. Where is she? I mean, from what we've seen in 2020, Vika Azarenka has been great. God damn it, it's so hard. Vika. Maybe I'll just call her Victoria. Anyway, Azarenka has been great when she's played. Serena Williams has won a fair amount of matches and, still has the best serve on tour. You look at what Brady's done. She won Lexington, and about as impressive of a win as anyone's had all year on tour. She's been great so far. Osaka's probably the best women's player on earth, if you really had to pick somebody. But this is so much fun, and I think when you close the roof, you get a chance to take away the win, take away, kind of random things that impact tennis outside of tennis, which I always appreciate. I think that we got a really clean match in the first match. I think we're going to get a really clean match here, and we're going to get to see the greatness of both players' serves and shots.
And I think that's the thing in this type of environment, the best player is going to win. And, we saw that, I think, with Osaka and her ability to get through that third set and play better in all of those key tight moments, which she's done now against, I think it's Doi, Kostyuk and Brady in those third sets across the fortnight. This is an interesting spot for Serena, and part of when I did my outright selection on her, the appeal of her was having those days break between each of her matches, and this is that one that isn't going to be, this obviously hasn't occurred. They played yesterday and have to switch the scheduling around to be able to get their day off before the final. So it's really important for Serena to get off to a good start here, and it'll be interesting to see if she can consolidate her early break of serve here with a hold herself. We'll just have a little bit of a look through some of the comments here. Did you have a pre-match play on this one?
So this was one it was lucky enough that I was up when it opened. I was able to get Azarenka here plus 104. I think she actually closes the favorite near minus 120, minus 125, depending on what you were. I think that I would line this match minus 110 either way. So I think that if you bet either player at plus money, you made a good wager here. I think this is going to be very close. I think this is essentially a coin flip. I think that overall Serena is the better player, but based on what we've seen for the last 2 weeks, it's hard to discount Azarenka. I mean, I've been overwhelmingly impressed. Now, her first match was paying against Barbara Haas. In this U.S. Open, no one really had a tough first match. But let's look at every match she played thereafter. Second round, she beat Sabalenka 6-1, 6-3. Third round, she beat Swiatek 6-4, 6-2. Fourth round, she loses the first set to Mahova, actually blows that set. I believe that she was leading 5-3 there, loses the first set, but wins the next two sets 6-1, 6-4. Beats Mertens 6-1, 6-0. And Mertens didn't play poorly. If you go back and listen to her talking about the match, if you go back and watch it, that is without a doubt one of the most impressive matches I've seen anyone play. For Azarenka to only lose one game in a match where Mertens was trying, playing hard, hitting good shots, and I'd have to go back and look, but I'm pretty sure Mertens didn't even hold serve the entire time. I mean, that's one of the more impressive victories I've ever seen. So as you start to go through it and look at this draw, it's amazing to me that Azarenka has made it this far. One of our buddies, Snies, was talking to me. He was regretting not betting Azarenka 20-1, but I started going back and looking, and it's like, if she wins this thing, man, she deserves it. I mean, nobody had a tougher draw than her after the fact.
And I think so. Part of my preview for Serena on this match was, and I'll play devil's advocate a bit to some of the things you said there, is you go back through all her wins through the bubble, and that includes we're calling it Cincinnati, Western and Southern Open, whatever you want to call it, from the week leading into
Cincinnati.
Outside of Sabalenka, there haven't been any real big power players that Azarenka has overcome, and I would argue on that day Sabalenka was woeful.
She hasn't been right since the restart. So I like that point. That's really interesting. I didn't notice that. I was looking through, but you're right. Again, as you go through that list, I'll run through it one more time. Haas, Sabalenka, Swiatek, Mahova, Mertens to get to this match. You're right. Serena is by far the only power player, the only person that can kind of match her shot-to-shot hitting.
And even going back to that Western and Southern Open run, I think there was Cornet. Who else? There was a couple of others. I think Konta may have been one. There's a few there that were.
I've got Tennis Abstract open in front of me. But you're right. I don't think that she played anybody terribly well. Which is, the point I think you're sort of working your way up to here is it's important to put that into context. So looking at that Cincinnati win, I finally have it in front of me. She beats Donna Vekic, who has good numbers, but has been very up and down. She beats Garcia, who has actually been good on hard courts. Then Cornet, then Jabeur, then she beats Konta. Now, and then she gets the final over Osaka, but that was a walkover. So you look at matches she actually played again: Vekic, Garcia, Cornet, Jabeur. Garcia has a little bit of power. Vekic has a nice serve, but it's nothing like playing Serena.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this match unfolds, because obviously Serena does have, and she is serving well. I know she is having patches through her matches that she's had her back against the wall against a number of players, Sloane Stephens, Zachary, and Peronkova. But yeah, it's just a different look, and I think part of looking through that first set in particular of Azarenka versus Mertens, I think it was, Mertens reached 30 in the scoring in 6 of the first 7 games and lost it 6-1. She just didn't take advantage, and Azarenka's ability to be so consistent from start to finish it and keep that pressure on just meant that she was better in basically 95% of the key or clutch moments for the match. So look, it's interesting here, and it's an interesting dynamic because Serena hasn't started this well in a number of matches this week. She's been playing from behind fairly consistently, so it'll be interesting to see what unfolds here over the next kind of 5 to 10 minutes, because all the momentum early is with Serena.
This has been fascinating, and I appreciate you pointing out that this is the first time Azarenka's had to pay a power player, and I'm going to go back and look through Serena's draw. I wonder if this is the first time Serena has played someone that's not going to work her around the court. Like, does she have a chance to just kind of stand and hit balls? So I didn't see any of the Peronkova match. I don't know her game very well. But Serena's matches before that, Zachary absolutely made her work. Sloane made her work. Looking back, Asparian, that's basically nothing there. And Kyrgios actually gave her a good first set. But yeah, I think this is the first time in a little while Serena can kind of stand and hit shots. So what have you seen so far from Azarenka? I mean, what's going on here? Mostly I'm seeing Serena play well. I haven't seen too much from Azarenka that looks poor, other than maybe she's just not moving because she doesn't think she needs to or something. I mean, what are your feelings here? Where I think we're 3 games in, or are we 4 games in, and Azarenka has yet to win one. She's been
3
broken
games
twice
in
now.
with a double break for Serena here. Yeah, look, I'll just see if I can pull the stats up onto the screen here as well, so we can kind of just see if there's anything that's really jumping out to us here. Let me see if I can get this up. Here we go. Alrighty. Now, early days. So, look, a low first serve percentage isn't going to be ideal against a player like Serena, who can assert authority off the return. 45% of first serves in for Azarenka, but interestingly, she's only won 1 out of the 5 that she has put in. Looking through it, look, Serena, she held serve for 30 there in that first service game. Lost 2 points, both of them double faults. And if Serena is going to kind of level out her winners to unforced errors, Azarenka is really going to need to step in and be a little bit more aggressive here. I don't think Serena is going to hand this match to Azarenka like we saw Sabalenka earlier in the tournament. So 1 winner to 4 unforced errors for Azarenka early is something she's going to need to get up on top of if she's going to find her way back into this first step.
So one of the things I generally appreciate by talking about you is you played a little more tennis. I think you understand the game maybe a little more deeply than me. If you're Azarenka, what are you trying to do here to maybe turn the tide? Is it picking up your aggressiveness? Is it actually maybe slowing down and trying to maybe start to work Serena a little bit? I know Azarenka, we don't think of her as a great mover, but she seems to be in good shape this fortnight. She's had a good couple weeks and her legs look fresh. So, if you're her, are you trying to make these points a little longer? What is your counter move if you're trying to coach Azarenka here?
I think, yeah, it's first of all, she's going to need to step in and be comfortable on return of serve. So if Serena's going to keep putting first serves in and finding lines, it's going to be very, very difficult. But Azarenka has history and has an awareness. She knows how to beat Serena and to really push her. And she knows, that in these moments that her opportunities will come. She just needs to be a little bit patient with it. I think if she starts to rush things, this could really blow away very, very quickly. She does look a little bit.
Sorry, go ahead. Keep going. You're doing a good job.
She does look a little bit flustered, which we haven't seen from Azarenka. But look, Serena, through these first couple of games, this is probably the best we've seen of her since the restart.
This is tremendous. I mean, all the faces and sounds I'm making are her hitting shots where it's like, oh my God. Like the last shot she just hit, she just put perfectly inside the line. I mean, I think she maybe only had 1 foot set. So I think you're right. So Serena's level is really high here. So let's see what Azarenka can do. And I'm curious right now. Let me pull up the live odds and see if maybe we have a little value on Miss Azarenka.
Something that Azarenka could use, and she used it quite well there in that point to get to 30-15, was her ability to hit that backhand cross court with a bit of angle and really get Serena on the move. You notice through these first couple of games, if Serena gets set, if she's able to get her feet set and hit through the ball, in these conditions, perfect conditions under a roof, it's everything's favouring Serena. Azarenka's going to need to use that counter-punching ability and try and find angles, particularly to the backhand, to try and work Serena and try and get her off the baseline. Too often through these first 4 games here, Serena's been able to step in, and once she takes a step inside the baseline, good luck.
I agree. I mean, so you look at that last point right there. Instead of second serve, Azarenka has a chance to really play a tactical point. Instead, tries to hit this really difficult backhand. I mean, it would have been nice if she had gotten it in, but I don't think that she had to hit that aggressive of a shot there. I think that she had a chance to, still set up a nice backhand, put Serena to one side, then get her back over the other side and be able to hit a winner in 3 shots instead of 1. But let's see. I'm curious if she changes her style. Again, I don't have a huge history watching a lot of Azarenka matches. The few that I've watched have just been her steamrolling over opponents. So, again, I'm curious to see if she can change her strategy. That's one of the more fascinating things for me watching tennis, watching these players try to change up what they're doing on the fly.
And I think the worry for her early, from my perspective, was that backhand return there that she did send wide. It's a great opportunity there for her to be able to kind of hit a deep return and try and get herself into the rally and try and take control, but she's trying to do too much too early here, and you wonder if there is a little bit of scoreboard pressure and panic that has come with this.
I agree. It's just, again, I think the point I'm circling here is it just seems like Azarenka is tactically almost making a mistake. Even if you're going to lose this set, if you look back at the history of beating Serena this year, last year, and even the year before, you make her play 3 sets. Like you said, you make her work, you make her get tired. And that's not what she's doing here.
If this set's over in 25 minutes, it doesn't matter how long. It doesn't matter if it's 3 sets. You've taken the physical component out of the match.
You really have, and I think Azarenka had a chance to make some long points here.
Yeah, and that was something we talked about on our live stream when we did Serena versus Sakkari, and in that match, Serena served for both the first set and the second set. I think it was at 5-3 on both occasions. Mm-hmm. Now, Sakkari was able to break in that first set and just extend the match out by another 20 minutes just by getting that to, I think it was a 7-5 in the end, wasn't it? So her ability to do that and then to extend that second set into a tiebreak, she was able to reap the reward of that in the third set when Serena started to cramp and struggle a little bit more physically. So I think it's really important for Azarenka in this particular position to try and eke out this first set as much as she can. I mean, if she comes back and takes it, then fantastic. But I think she would benefit more from trying to really push this match to a position where, at least if the first set goes, 35, 40 minutes. But at the moment, it's love 4, and it's been 16 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. She's playing the match Serena wants to play the match. It's not maybe I think when we talk about it in tennis terms, we talk about whose racket the match is going to be on. But I think this is one of the rare times that both women have a chance to have the match on their racket. I think both women are talented enough. They hit the ball hard enough where they have a chance to dictate points from time to time. And Azarenka hasn't used that ability yet. I mean, just look at that point she lost right there. I mean, Serena just pushes her around. It's strange.
And that response there from Serena was exactly what I wanted to see from Azarenka in the last game. She hit the return really deep, and Azarenka had to play a defensive shot, and it set up the ability then to produce a winner with that forehand cross court with Azarenka out of position. Again, as soon as Serena is able to step inside that baseline, good luck.
Exactly, right? Once Serena gets a chance to, and not even come to net, but like you said, just get inside the baseline and start to make those returns a little quicker. But you've hit a lot of this right on the head. I like what you talked about Serena being able to get her feet set. You've seen a lot of those points where she just gets set and she has a second or two to line it up, and you can't give her that opportunity. So let's see. This is a big point. If Azarenka can hold here, maybe she has a chance to put some pressure on the next game. Did you get a chance to watch the first match at all?
I caught snippets. I had a deadline to get my previews for tomorrow's men's semi-finals in, so they were all done and dusted, which was good. But yeah, I did catch bits, and look, I think whoever wins this second semi-final, I feel like they'll go in with a little bit of belief. I think from what we saw from Osaka, I mean, she was great late in that match, but she's probably the best performance I've seen from her. And I think we were talking a little bit about the match that there were some moments, I think, for both players where, just that ability to kind of take, 5-10% off some of the shots and go for placement just wasn't quite there. I think when Osaka was broken late in that second set, she was just trying to push the issue too much, and it ended up burning her. I think if we see Serena from these first 5 games, if she somehow makes her way through to the final, I reckon that would be one of the more fascinating finals. And look, I'd love to see, I think the storylines between a Serena versus Osaka match and an Azarenka versus Osaka match, which we never really got before Azarenka stepped away from the game to, in terms of starting a family. So there's a lot of storylines here, and I think that's really important for tennis in its current landscape. Particularly with lots of other sports on, and their desire or wants to try and get some more eyes on the screens. They'd be really hoping, I think, for Serena to make it through to the final here.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I would love to see her play another final against Osaka. Historically speaking, that would be really interesting. But I think, honestly, either of these women would be fun, Azarenka or Serena. But the Serena-Osaka rematch would be great, especially if they can get that same chair on. I know they won't, but, man, I would love that.
How
Just go for it. Maximum chaos.
having had so look, we're coming to the pointy end now of the tournament. How have you found the no crowd? Has it played much of a role?
My major point is that I'm sick of hearing about it. Every single match, all over the broadcast, all they keep doing is talking about the fact that there isn't fans now. It almost seems like they just want to rub it in our faces that we couldn't go. From a player perspective, no. I think you've seen players behave fairly normally. I wonder if part of the reason these matches have been so competitive is that there hasn't been any fans distracting people. As you start to look at similar situations from other sports, the NBA has seen an uptick in their free throw shooting and their shooting in general without fans. I wonder if we go back and do a statistical analysis, have serve percentages risen in general for these players? Have unforced errors gone down in general for these players? I'd be curious to see how that's affected those plays. I haven't seen anyone do that analysis yet, but the matches for me have been just as fun. I think that the players' energy have been great. I think that you're seeing just the same amount of emotion that you would see from these players, whether they're fans there or not. Maybe there's not as much fist pumping and outward cheering, but I think the level of intensity has been great. I don't think the lack of fans have actually cost us anything from that level.
Yeah, and I think and I'd be interested to go back and have a look as well of kind of the performances overall, the performances of Americans or home crowd, and home crowd advantage, I guess, is lost. And I know there's been a bit of work done in some of the other sports, and NBA in particular, about home court or home crowds for particular teams. But I guess thinking about here, there are a couple of players that feed off crowds, but it seems like they've responded and they acknowledge the situation that they're in, and I think they're finding their own ways to self-motivate. But then other players who are perhaps a little bit more introverted, like an Osaka, for example, they seem to be having no issues over the fortnight. So it's been interesting to see it all unfold. And I guess the big question in the next week and a bit is how much of a crowd there's going to be in Paris for the French Open, which is supposedly starting Monday week.
I really worry about that. So talking about another American sport, the NFL starts tonight. The teams that are playing, the Houston Texans and the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs are at 20% capacity for their stadium. There are two teams in Florida, the Miami Dolphins and the Jacksonville Jaguars, Florida being one of the highest rates of infection for COVID lately, are going to have fans there. The Dallas Cowboys are going to try to fill half of their stadium, and I think there's at least 2 or 3 other teams that are going to have fans. God bless. I hope all this stuff works out. I think that when you start to look at sports that have contained their players, like the MLS, like the NBA, like tennis, there has not been really any COVID problems. There were some issues with Benoit Paire. Luckily, that didn't really turn into too much. You look at the NBA, there hasn't been really any COVID issues. There have been issues of players breaking the bubble, but nobody has gotten COVID. MLS, I haven't heard anything wrong there. But you look at Major League Baseball, they've had players traveling around. They've had a lot of issues with stuff like that. I just really worry with the combination of travel to France and the fans in France that there might be an issue, but I'm optimistic. It seems like things are getting better. I hope that, maybe we as a public are starting to build a little bit of herd immunity and try to get some antibodies, but you're much more qualified to talk about that than me. I'm nervous. I'm nervous, but I'm not worried yet, maybe, if that makes sense.
I'm nervous about the French Opens, just considering the spike in cases in France at the moment, but also if they were going without a crowd, I'd probably be more confident. But it just brings in another element to it that, yes, they're kind of separating out crowds into a couple of different sections, which is their current plan. But what happens, and this is just very, very low risk, but when they're trying to mitigate risk as much as possible, what happens if a ball's hit into the crowd and someone grabs the ball, they've touched it, they are asymptomatic but have COVID and throw the ball back? Like if you go into so much effort to keep things so secure, it just seems weird for them to be deciding, yeah, we're going to bring crowds into this and take that risk. Now, we made the comment at, I think it was at 4 Love, that Azarenka really needed to extend out this set. She's doing that now, but she's had a break point chance here, and she's at deuce now again on the Serena serve. This is a really important phase here.
She just saved a game point there. Well, Serena missed it more than she saved it. Serena's still getting a lot of opportunities, like we've talked about a lot so far, to set up her feet and hit balls. To your earlier question, to actually take it maybe a little different place, I'm always fascinated by sports that force their fans to throw stuff back. Are you telling me that tennis does not have enough money to just let fans keep tennis balls that go into the crowd? Come on. How stupid is it that they have to throw them back? Why is baseball the only sport that lets people keep stuff? Basketball, they throw the ball back. Football, they actually put a net up to keep fans from catching the ball after field goals and extra points and stuff. I hope that, but I think it's a perfect example. When you start to bring fans in, it's this weird extra element that you're not ready for, that you're not prepared for. It's this whole unknown thing coming to the Petri dish. Again, I'm going to try to be optimistic and hope that things go well, since the U.S. Open has been a success. The Southern and Western Open has been very good, but fans, they've done a pretty decent job with the bubble. Serena holds. Nice point there. Azarenka made her work. Serena breathing really hard right now. She's finally starting to sweat a little bit. This is the first time she's looked tired to me in this match. I'm curious to see on this next point, Azarenka about to serve, how much movement we get out of Serena. I wonder if Serena just lets Azarenka serve this one out so she gets a chance to close out, but we'll see.
I think that's the thing, that double break advantage here is going to come in handy for Serena, so we will see what unfolds there. And I guess, look, if there's one takeaway, I think, from the fortnight of the US Open, it's don't play cards with Benoit Paire.
that seems to be the idea.
That's where all the issues begin. Now,
I'd love to hang out with Benoit Paire, but just not a good COVID buddy.
No, not in a bubble. I'd like to be able to get away from him at some point, I would imagine. Now, if we just bring this one up, so we'll have a quick look through and see. So, are we going to get some stats, or is my internet going to fail me?
Oh, no.
Go. So still 47% of first serves in for Azarenka. So we'll probably need to see an uptick in that from her to find her way back into this match. But look, when Serena's hitting 71% of first serves and winning 87% of them, it's going to make life very difficult. 10 winners, 8 unforced errors for Serena, 3 winners and 6 unforced errors for Azarenka so far, with Azarenka serving at 1-5-30 love.
It's kind of what I thought. Serena not really moving on those first 2 points, but she's got a second serve here, so she stepped inside the baseline and it seems to be more interested. Misses it wide, but again, a lot of points where Serena got a chance to plant her feet. So Azarenka starting to move around a little more, but not quite to the level that I would like yet.
Now, I know you've obviously been quite busy with all of your NBA work as well as the US Open. Have you been keeping an eye on the other women's tournament going on at the moment?
A little bit. I had a bet at Istanbul today that didn't make any sense to me. Paula Badosa was, at the time, I think, plus 160, plus 165 against Sarah Sorribes Tormo, who is better on clay, but not terribly good at all. For some reason, Badosa closed plus 190, so the market really liked Tormo there, but Badosa won 2-0 pretty simply from what I recall. Yeah, 6-1, 6-4. So I've been paying a little attention to Istanbul. It's been fun watching Jeannie Bouchard. I mean, it's weird to think of her as a clay player, but maybe this is her best service. How about you? Have you been watching some of the other tournaments? I haven't had a chance to catch up on the men's side in Kitzbühel yet, but I saw that Fanini lost, which makes sense since, he probably doesn't care.
I think he doesn't care, and he's coming back off double ankle surgery, so I don't think it's going to be a smooth return. So he obviously had some trouble overnight. I think, did I see correctly, Bouchard is the new favourite for Istanbul?
I have not looked at those outrights. Let me take a look at the draw here and see who's left.
I think looking through it, I mean, one of the impressive performances from yesterday was Tig, I think, winning 11-2 over Misaki Doi, which is a pretty good win in the circumstances to be able to kind of take control of that match. But yeah, look, it's a really funny little patch here because we're getting a mixture of players coming back over from the the United States coming into these European clay tours. You've got players who have been staying. Eugenie Bouchard, for example, I think has been in the Czech Republic for quite a number of weeks in a row in the lead up to this tournament then in Istanbul. And it's the same on the men's side. They've had a couple of players come across and, perhaps have one good performance. I think Jordan Thompson comes to mind. But he make the fourth round of the US Open, heads over to Austria, wins the first match in a tiebreak in the third set against John Millman as a massive underdog, and then the next day comes out and gets absolutely blown out of the water. So it'll be interesting to see these players kind of transition back across continents with not a lot of backup, considering particularly for the men, with the Masters 1000 next week and then a Grand Slam. So it's not like it's going to be a short, an easy schedule for players, if they are successful over the next couple of weeks. There's going to be a lot of backing up.
Yeah, I think from a men's side, and even a women's side, it's going to be really tough to attack Rome. You're going to have a lot of players either playing for the first time. That'll be Rafa's first match back. A lot of other men's players either playing their first match or coming back across country. I think that the week or so before Roland Garros is going to be really tough. But that's what we've been dealing with so far. I mean, that has been the break. This has been one of the strangest times to bet tennis and try to figure out who's going to play well without any form now. Serena, I mean, putting a ton of pressure on here on Azarenka. I think Azarenka was up 40-15.
40 love.
40 love, and now we're looking at a break point here for Serena.
Now, we just had a question on the chat here from Trevor.
Great point by Azarenka on the second serve to stay alive, by the way.
With COVID cases surging in France, do you guys predict any withdrawals? And this, I think, is a really great question, and a lot of it comes back to the crowd. I think, you think about, obviously, Roland Garros, that they're trying to generate some sort of revenue off this tournament by having a crowd and having ticket sales there. But I feel like, conversely, having a crowd there and looking at the perhaps not as strict biosecurity precautions put in place by Roland Garros may put some players off taking part. What do you think?
I think it's going to require a lot of social media homework. I'm really curious to see how players respond to this. It seems like Simona Halep has been doing everything she can to avoid coming over to the United States, where COVID's been a problem. Maybe it's been she's trying to avoid hardcourt thing. Maybe it's been she's trying to avoid COVID thing. But her specifically is going to be somebody I watch. We've yet to see her play. She's made a lot of her announcements kind of late. I think that on the men's side, it seems like Nadal and the important players from the French Open side, has a rank of double faults there to have a chance to win the game. But, again, circling back, you look at Nadal, I think Djokovic is going to be fully motivated to play the French. I think those guys aren't really too worried about that, but I think it is going to be fascinating. I don't know if players are going to withdraw necessarily, but we'll see. I'm not rushing to bet any French Open outrights, that's for sure.
No, I think it's obviously a high-risk situation in the lead up to the tournaments as well. I mean, we saw Ash Barty has pulled out, so she won't be defending her title. What
did you think of that, by the way?
I think it's fair. I think she's got nothing from a ranking standpoint. She has nothing to gain from attending. She won it last year. She can't earn any more points. I don't think financials are an issue at this stage. She's been here, so we've been in lockdown for forms of lockdown now for 6 months here in Australia, and she lives in a different state to her coach, so she hasn't been able to do any kind of significant training, with her coach on the court there with her.
Okay.
I think she's decided that, look, you know what, I'm just going to call it for 2020, and if she can get herself into the best situation for the 2021 Australian Open, whatever that looks like, I think that's her target now, and it's probably fair enough. I know she was doing some practice on clay, and she was kind of splitting between clay and hard, but it was I think now she's just reverted. She's given up on the clay and gone, look, we're just going to look to next year, which I think for her will be a bit disappointing, because obviously as world number one, you want to capitalize on your form while you can. Careers aren't long, and you need to make the most of it when you're at the top. As I say that, though, some careers are long, as we've seen Serena take the first set here, 6-1 in 35 minutes.
Breadstick. That was impressive in the last game, too. I mean, she was moving. The last couple points were about as good as I've seen Serena move in a while. She was attacking the net. She was moving left to right. Again, she's starting to look tired, but like you said, she got through that in pretty nice time. If she can keep this second set quick, she's going to be a really interesting opponent for Osaka there. And I guess maybe I'll ask you this, even though we've seen Azarenka have a really bad first set, based on what we've seen from Serena, do you think Azarenka is totally drawn dead here in the second, or do you think she has a chance to come back and make this competitive?
I think, look, from what we've seen there, we're going to need, Azarenka will need Serena to drop off her level a little bit. The one area that we talked about before, and I've just got up here on the stats, Azarenka needs to up that first serve percentage at the end of the day. That's not going to win it against Serena, particularly if 2 out of 3 first serves are going in play for Serena. The way she's served over the fortnight, it's going to be a tough ask, but she's really going to need to start strong here. And something that's probably a little bit unfortunate for her is that she's not able to now exert any scoreboard pressure on her with Serena serving first here. So if Serena can get a nice hold to start off, it's a long road back for Azarenka in a position that she hasn't been in a lot over the last couple of weeks. And the one time she was, her opponent was injured.
It's a good point. It really is a good point. And that's why I'm curious here. Azarenka played just about as bad of a set as we've seen her play in a long time, but Serena's cruised through first sets and made a mess of matches. So I wonder if we'll have a chance to see as competitive. But there's an ace, just about one of the nicer aces you'll ever see, right down the tee, 118 miles an hour for a woman, which is just about as big as anybody will do.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Can she go back?
Now, I feel like I've been sitting on this one for a fortnight, and I feel like regardless of what happens from here, I feel like I'm vindicated with my Serena outright selection.
Absolutely.
I was very alone on the hill before the tournament of taking Serena around that $7 or plus 600 mark. But I feel like regardless of what happens from here, I feel like I am comfortable having made that decision.
I don't see how you could say anything else. Actually, I didn't realize it got up to as high as 6-1. I saw 5-1 myself. I actually had some 5-1 and 6-1 from about a month or so before the tournament started. Even longer than that, just before they started doing all the withdrawals and books were still leaving stuff up. But you're right. Before the tournament, there was a lot of pessimism about Serena. I wonder how many people. If you guys are aware of tennisdrawchallenge.com, they let you do a little bracket picking contest for every tournament. I wonder how many people actually picked Serena. I wonder if her rate was as high as Djokovic's was on the men's side. I bet it wasn't, but I'd be curious to see. But there was a lot of pessimism. She looked really tough. Physically, she struggled. But you made some good points. Having every other day off has been a big advantage for her. I think that she's possibly even had some influence over these start times. Have you been confused to see Serena Williams playing the first match the last couple rounds?
A little bit. I was surprised by. I wasn't surprised by the one yesterday. I felt like that seemed like a bit of a veteran move to really make sure that she's basically got. I mean, Azarenka won 6-1, 6-love, so it didn't matter. But to be able to get an extra 8 hours on your opponent before a semi-final is probably the right move if you have the opportunity to take it. I thought the Sakkari one during the day was a little bit surprising, as was the Sloane one. But look, she's handled it pretty well overall. And I think the thing with it is down a set to Sloane, down 2-love in the third set to Sakkari, down a set to Pirogova. She had ample opportunities to kind of fold up and move on to the whatever comes next for her, be it the French Open or otherwise. But she's managed to dig in and find her way out of these situations. And it's almost a bit of a reverse of some of the lead-up tournaments where she was putting herself in winning positions and then things were going the other way. So, Azarenka still has a chance here if she can put together a really good kind of 10, 15-minute patch. The other advantage, which we haven't really touched on here, is Azarenka does have the ability, if she needs to to be able to come into the net and use her volley game a little bit more and give, I guess, a bit of a different look. A lot of players at this level don't have kind of a plan B, and I guess Azarenka does have that option. But look, it does take a fair bit of courage, I think, to come in consistently against a player like Serena, who is so powerful at both wings.
So you think she does have a plan B? I mean, she just keeps doing the same stuff over and over again. I haven't seen Azarenka really try anything different yet.
I mean, in a way, plan B is get your first serve in. I think it's a different one. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a plan B. I'd say there's room for improvement in plan A. If she was putting 80% of first serves in and still found herself down 1-6, I'd be a little bit more concerned. Obviously, I'm quite concerned for her at the moment. 1-6 love, 1-30 all. But I think she is going to need a little bit of a drop in level here from Serena, who is looking incredibly good.
Jesus, did you see that? I think that was a first serve.
Mm-hmm.
So Serena just took a first serve and hit a backhand down the line that was completely unreturnable, like it was nothing.
This has been impressive.
It really
has
has.
Been a very, very impressive 42 minutes of tennis to date.
It looks like she's caught her breath too. She stopped sweating. She's not breathing real heavy anymore. So Azarenka's given her a chance to catch her breath. But here we go. We're at deuce. So maybe we can work her through an extra point or two here. Azarenka trying to work herself back. She's doing that confidence bob or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it just makes you dizzy.
I think it is that little bit of positive self-talk to try and find a way back into this. I think she's aware of how important that point was then to save a break point, but how important this little patch is here, and she gets away there with a nice winner and continues to try and rev herself up.
She's looking better. Let's see. I mean, based on what we saw in the first set, right, this should be all Serena, but we've seen this before, so I'm curious.
And again,
another good serve. Another easy. That was nice.
The power of getting your first serve in. Amazing how it can take the pressure off and allow you to play with a little bit more freedom.
It was just funny to watch her get a first serve in, get smoked, and then get the next two first serves in and smoke Serena like that. I think it almost speaks to the impressiveness of that shot we saw at 30-15 to get to 30-30.
Definitely.
So let's see. Now we have the return game. Let's see if Azarenka can turn this into any pressure. She is so far behind the baseline. Oh, my.
She's serving. And look, I understand why Azarenka is that far back. I'm just not sure it works against Serena, because when you are that far back, it allows Serena to take that step in for her second shot. She has time, and from back there, Azarenka is not going to put Serena on the back foot unless she absolutely finds a line. So it's a tricky spot, and she just stepped into that one a little bit more, and she needs to be a little bit more assertive. You can see that she is trying to talk herself up quite a bit here.
Definitely.
I guess we did talk about it was 4-love after 15 minutes, and we wanted to see Azarenka kind of push it out to, a 35 to 40 minute first set. Although it was 1-6, it did get out to that 35-minute mark. So there was a little bit of extra tennis in there for Serena, and things were a little bit tight. But you have a 15-30 opportunity for her here after another aggressive return down the line. And this is probably a good chance for her to try and exert a little bit of scoreboard pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is her chance. She has to get at least a break point here, if not a break.
And this is the difference with Azarenka, who's someone who's been there before and won Grand Slams. You look at the way that she was trying to talk herself up through that little patch. She has an awareness in game of what needs to be done and how important that patch was. I just don't think we see that from a lot of players. I think, Mertens in particular, yesterday, we just didn't see much of that. It was just kind of a lot of one-way traffic, and there was no opportunity to kind of take a positive and kind of, run with a little bit of momentum. 30 all here for Serena after a pretty powerful forehand down the line there. We'll
Yeah,
see
that was a nice
what
point for Serena.
yeah, this is probably a big point and a big game in the context of the match.
Perfect serve. Absolutely perfect. I don't think anyone on planet Earth could have returned that. Gets it up, gets it wide, just inside the line with some nice spin on it. Wow, that was pretty.
Thinking about, I'm just going back to your question before around some of the scheduling for Serena and a couple of those day matches. She obviously did have a bit of trouble at night against Zachary in the Western and Southern Open. Now, we know in the lead up to the US Open, I think the USTA delivered her a court to her home, which was identical surface to what they saw.
Do you think it was the USTA, or do you think it was whatever company built the?
Oh, whoever it was, the company, whoever it was that delivered them the court. So I
just want to be clear on that. I just don't want to be on a podcast talking about how the Tennis Association gave Serena Williams a heads up on the court, and not like other players also didn't have that advantage. By the way, all this stuff is very well broadcasted. Serena Williams' advantage is, frankly, she has enough money and clout to either pay for it or get somebody to just show up and give it to her. So, just to be clear on that point.
Thinking about having that court set up, as part of your practice, I would assume the majority of her practice in the lead up would have been during the day. And I wonder if these courts are playing a little bit different at night.
I think so. We've seen that for sure. I mean, courts at night, courts during the day. The roof is closed now versus being open. You've seen outdoor courts versus indoor courts. That was one of the more interesting things. I've been surprised to see Serena play so well on courts that have looked a little bit slower. I mean, I know with the roof closed, you have less of the elements impacting your accuracy, but generally on these show courts, there's less play. So, the material isn't as worn down, things like that. Usually end up getting them to be a little bit slower, but it hasn't made a big difference. But again, it's a timing. It seems like she's wanted to play earlier in the day. So, and again, I don't know how much control she has over that versus everyone else. But it was just interesting to me to see her playing matches at noon versus night matches. And maybe that's a fan's thing too, right? Maybe the U.S. Open isn't so focused on making her play at night because no one's showing up anyway.
I've just had a little bit of a look while you were chatting then. It looks like, I'm not sure how she got the court, but the US Open tournament director, Stacey Alister, confirmed that the surface for the 2020 US Open and Western and Southern Open was shipped to Serena's house. So she's got a new court in her backyard, so she has been training. She'll be playing and she's excited to come back. But yeah, I guess if you have practiced for so long, in the months leading up to the US Open, and I would assume that, as I said, the majority of her practices would have been during the day, whether that was maybe an incentive for her to try and play a couple of those matches against Stevens and Zachary, with a couple of those danger games in conditions that are a little bit more, more similar to what she's been practicing in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, we see Azarenka really trying to amp herself up and get those feet moving. Again, a couple of nice first serves. She's finding range for that first serve and gets a quick 30-love lead.
And she does. Again, the longer this match goes, the better it is for Azarenka. So as long as Serena isn't breaking, as long as Azarenka is holding serve and surviving here, she has a better chance.
Now we have a look. Set one, it said Azarenka was getting 52% of those first serves in. She's upped that early here to 82%. So she's got 9 out of 11 early in this set. So
you've seen that she's had more control over the points.
A big shift here, and just an increased comfort level on serve, which is something she was severely lacking in the first set in particular. So a nice couple of service games here from Azarenka to get things going in the second.
Yeah, she seems more energized. She seems more positive. It's looking at each other's face, looking at both of their faces. I like hers a lot better than Serena. But let's see. Again, Serena, I think, is actually taking some points off these games. It seems that she's saving a little energy. But let's see. Ooh, bad net cord for Serena. That's one of the first bad breaks she's gotten. So let's see. Let's see how that goes. Because lately she's been pretty bad about those bad breaks. She seems to be really focused on them. So let's see if she can step up here and fire an ace. Nope. Love her shoes, though. She's been wearing these basketball sneakers all week. They're great. I got to get myself a pair. I wonder also if players that have watch contracts play worse than players without them. I would think it's hard to play with a watch on your wrist.
I would say particularly if you have a two-handed backhand, it would make life quite difficult. But here we go. We have a challenge here on a shot from Serena. Big difference between 15-0 and love 30 here. And
looked out to me, but I'm always wrong. Except right now. Hey, look at that.
So a big spot here for Azarenka at love 30. Now, did you see Jennifer Brady fail to challenge that out call early in the third set with 3 challenges remaining?
Yeah, the third. I thought there was some in the second set as well. She could have challenged, but yeah, this early. It was such a disappointment to watch that match finish that way. I thought that we saw 2 really fantastic sets of tennis. I was excited to see the third, and to have it just unravel so quickly in one game like that. I just, that was arguably I don't actually know if it was arguably. I think that was the biggest match of Jennifer Brady's life, and I think that at certain moments that showed, and that was absolutely one of those moments where she got a little nervous and maybe didn't think. Serena gets a point here, so we're at 15-30. One more chance for Azarenka to get a break point, and she does. Look at 2 break points for Azarenka here. But what did you think of that, by the way? Again, I was disappointed in Brady. Do you think it was clearly a mistake for her to not challenge? I did.
I think so. It's in that position, even if it's for peace of mind, knowing that you missed it when you've got 3 challenges in hand, that at such a crucial moment, that felt like a mistake, and it felt like she was so frustrated. I think they even commented on the commentary that she, her coach had told her to challenge or had yelled out to challenge, and she was just locked in on walking to the chair and the change of ends. But it was, it was an unfortunate situation, I think, for her there.
There's the break.
The break. A great forehand. That forehand set up the break there for Azarenka with a nice cross-court backhand.
Really was a fantastic game for her. She's starting to look a lot better. And that's an amazing part about tennis. I mean, for me, I love tennis because I think it is without a doubt the most mentally grueling sport. If you think about tennis players, they are the loneliest athletes. Even golfers have caddies. And when you bring them into Grand Slams here, when they can't even talk to their coaches, it's just them. And they're down, it's sunk in below, they're all by themselves, they have to walk by their opponent after certain points and stuff. It's just amazing. It's the ultimate mental grind to me. So if Azarenka continues to stay positive like this is going to be competitive. So I know I got this question quite a while ago, but Coochby was asking if this goes 3 sets. Looks like we might get it. What do you think?
It's heading that way now. Probably a key game here for Azarenka trying to consolidate that break. We've seen a number of players struggle with consolidation over the last couple of days in the men's and the women's. Excuse me. But look, the 2 things that have really stood out, we've touched on the 83% first serve percentage for Azarenka for this set, but also 6 winners to 0 unforced errors, giving up nothing cheap.
Yeah, and that's what you have to do. I mean, just make her work. Continue to fight. Make everything tough.
And Azarenka's found her range with that cross-court backhand as well, which is really keeping Serena off balance.
Yeah, it's interesting to see Serena. She's starting to miss some spots that she was hitting in the first set, and it's hard for me to figure out if what we saw in the first set was her, or maybe she was just redlining or something like that, because now she's starting to miss some of those spots on her shots. I mean, stuff that she was getting right on the line, she's starting to push out a little bit. But let's see. Like you said, it's the consolidation here is important. In the WTA, it's hard to consolidate a break. So let's see what Azarenka's got here.
Particularly against a player like Serena, just from a pure standpoint of the pressure that you can feel from the other end of the court.
And it gets the first serve in. Thought Serena missed that shot. I think she had a chance to actually make a good return there. But 15-love. Let's see. Another first serve in. Serena having trouble with some of these kick serves. I think that was a kick serve.
And it does look like, she has incorporated a little bit more kick into these first serves, which, as a result, has helped that first serve percentage really skyrocket in this set.
Yeah, it's exactly what you said. I mean, just get your serves in and make her work. Don't make mistakes. And here we go. That's another first serve again. That wasn't terribly hard. She wasn't going for an aggressive spot. It was kind of right in the middle of the box, and Serena hit it right into the net for the third time in a row.
I think Azarenka is now very aware of, as we said, the importance of this little patch, and now she's taken back control.
Yes, she has. Hits one in the net here, so we're going to have a second serve. Serena inside the baseline. Let's see if she can get this point here. Nope, hits it right in the net again. That's 4 points in the row and into the net for Serena. Great consolidation for Azarenka. I kind of wonder if Azarenka breaks right here. Serena looks like she's talking to herself. Hold on a second. I'm going to pull up that price. It's games. Game 6 is already done. Game 7 winner. Azarenka's plus 230. What do you think about that? Well, actually, plus 400. Although I guess 15. So she's plus 400 now at 15. Love. Serena got the first serve there.
I think that's the thing with that. Although the price does obviously, it does look appealing. You know, that Azarenka hasn't consistently found a way into the Serena service games. But look, if she can get it to 15-all here, it'll be an interesting little patch.
It's funny talking about the differences between men's and women's tennis, but you have two good servers here, so you have a chance for maybe some more holds here. But again, Serena's looking really tired here, not moving her feet. It was kind of, I don't know about you, but I thought that was a lazy shot. I think that she could have taken maybe another step and gotten in a better position to hit that.
Yeah, there was no footwork on that shot, but that return from Azarenka was exactly what we were hoping to see from her in that first set, when we said, you know, that if you can hit that return deep and back at the feet of Serena, it really opens up the court. You don't need to hit winners off the return of serve.
I agree. This is starting to get really interesting. Serena really starting to miss the edges here. Bad shot by Azarenka there. There we go. Serena back at 30-30.
Really came off that backhand.
I will say I love Serena. I love watching someone emote this way. I know that for a lot of people this is annoying and they're going to complain, and we could have a long discussion about how great our friend Vinny's tweet was around talking about how people complain about collapses in the WTA, but don't ever talk about collapses in the men's tennis game. And I thought that was really great. Thank you for sending that out, Vinny. And as I watch Serena right now, this looks like a lot of the men's tennis players I've seen, but I wonder if she's going to get a lot more crap if she doesn't win this. Did that go in? I can't tell. I am the worst person on earth. I'd be the worst goddamn lines judge. They called it out.
Yeah,
they called it out. I think we're getting a challenge here.
Big moment.
So maybe dumb question for me. Why don't they just Hawkeye everything?
Yeah, look, they had the Hawkeye on the outdoor court, that live Hawkeye. I'm assuming it's a money thing, and just generally for the I think they wanted to keep the aesthetics of, look, if Hawkeye Live went badly on the outside courts, it wouldn't be as much of an issue, I guess, for ESPN and everyone who's broadcasting it. You at least know kind of, you know what you're going to get when you have the lines people on. I think they wanted that constant on the big courts. But I would not like to be a lines person, in terms of having the job of a lines person. I don't think they're going to be around for too many years.
The only similar thing I can think of in American sports is the fact that a human being calls balls and strikes in baseball. Mm-hmm. Wow, what a great return by Serena. I'm sorry, Azarenka there. Serena gets a decent serve in, and Azarenka just pounds. I think that was a backhand down the line. But again, Major League Baseball, the entire sport is about balls and strikes. And you have a human being standing behind somebody wearing a mask that is generally at least 60 years of age, compromised eyesight, trying to call another human being, throw a ball 100 miles an hour. We have all the computers. Every single TV channel on earth knows exactly where every pitch goes as soon as it goes. But we got a 60-year-old back there with a mask on. He'll figure it out.
Now, big spot here for Serena. I just had a look at the stats while we were talking there. She's 0 for 7 on her second serve for this set. So
that's surprising.
if she can find a way out of this game after a couple of break point opportunities, very big difference between 4-3 and 5-2.
Yes, sir. This has been really impressive for me the last couple of points. She seems to have caught her composure, and I think she's hitting for smaller spots. It looks like she's way inside lines now as opposed to trying to hit lines. So maybe an adjustment from Serena here. Her coach stands up and claps for the first time in a week. I like her coach. I don't know if he's smart or not, but when I watch him, he looks like he's doing anything else but like being interested in what's going on. He seems to like want to talk to whoever's sitting around him. He's like checking his phone or whatever, like reading a book or something. So it's good to see him show a little intensity and interest in a match.
Yeah, I think he's a very good coach. His use of statistics is not fantastic, but look, we can continue to hold that against him as long as he thinks
and
that
a lot of other people.
Yeah, as long as he continues to spruik that the average age of a tennis fan is over 60, I'm going to continue to doubt him. And why I doubt him with that is, well, one, it seems a long way off what you would consider to be an average, but two, his reasoning for tennis needing to change was that the average age of tennis fans in 10 years' time would be 70.
Well, if it's 60 now, in 10 years it'll be 70 because no younger people or new humans will ever like tennis.
And no one over the age of 60 will pass away in the next 10 years, will they?
No, they'll just get older.
Anyway, I won't hold that against him. I think he's done very, very well as a coach. And speaking of coaches, what are your thoughts on the Diana Yastremska news? Parting ways with Coach Sasha.
I think that Coach Sasha maybe needs to focus being more of a coach and less of a boyfriend to some of these players. This is not the first or second or even the third time that we've seen some interesting comments from players to him that would seem kind of like stuff that your girlfriend would say to you. Now, again, none of this stuff is confirmed as far as I know, but I think Sasha is maybe a little overrated if we start to look at his last couple of years. What did you think of that?
Look, I think it really depends. It depends on what way you look at it. Obviously, his big success as a coach has been his efforts with Naomi Osaka to get her first 2 Grand Slams. So on face value, you look at that and go, well, that's an impressive effort to be part of the journey to get her to world number 1 and to win 2 Grand Slams.
Now, how did he allegedly lose that job, by the way?
Well, that's the thing. So alternately, you have to wonder what on earth has happened for him to lose that job coming off Grand Slam wins and being world number 1. We've seen since then that look, the decision-making probably around coaching and he's trying to pick the next player that's on the way up to peak and to be able to show that he's showcased that improvement. I don't know if Yastremska was the right one and picking the last couple of players, I think he's really struggled with the dynamic of a couple of players who have a heavy family input into the coaching team. Yeah, he's made a couple of interesting decisions. I'm not sure where he goes next, to be honest. Does he look to maybe a more established player trying to make their way back to the top, or do you think he starts again and tries to find another up and coming teenager, early 20s to try and continue their rise to the top of the rankings?
I think his next job is going to speak volumes about how the tennis community feels about him. Like you said, he did some great work with Naomi Osaka, getting her to her first 2 titles, but gets fired in a pretty bizarre and unceremonious way from what I remember. Again, I haven't looked up all the facts, but from what I remember, that was kind of like another weird social media situation. Then he switches from there. Was he working with Bencic? Who was he working with after Osaka? I'm trying to remember. Another young player, I thought.
I think he went to Mladenovic for a bit.
Yeah, it was Mladenovic for like 3 weeks, though, and then it was Yastremska, maybe? I was trying to remember if there was someone in between Mladenovic and Yastremska, but you start to look at who he's worked with, and besides what you've seen from Osaka, who has been just as good since he left, what has he done to make Yastremska any better?
Exactly.
I'm hard-pressed to tell. She hasn't done anything impressive under him. Mladenovic was exactly the same player. Osaka, again, seems to be just fine without him, so I think Mr. Bine could use a successful coaching opportunity here if he cares at all about my opinion of him.
And it's interesting when you go back through all those, particularly the more recent players that he's been in. So we'll look at Yastremska, Mladenovic, and Osaka. Look, he probably did a great job of instilling the confidence in Osaka that she was one of the best players and could make her way to the top. I don't think that was ever going to be an issue with Yastremska. I feel like she has a fairly high opinion of herself, and I wonder if there was perhaps not a lot that could be really gleaned there, and how much, it's a two-way street from a coaching perspective. Like you need, you can have your opinion on what you think will work, but the player also needs to be quite open to accepting that feedback and to actually use it to their advantage if they see it as an advantage. I just don't see that happening with Yastremska. I feel like Yastremska's probably got a couple of years now where she's just going to have to figure out what's going on with her career and where she's at. But I think she will hit a point, perhaps in the next couple of years, where she realizes that, look, I have some deficiencies in my game. What can I do to improve it? But I just don't think she's open to that kind of feedback yet.
I agree with that. I think that's a pretty good criticism. I just worry about Yastremska in general. We're really lucky from a WTA perspective to have this just plethora of overwhelmingly talented young women. I just hope that at least a couple of them start to figure out how to put it together.
Mm-hmm. And I think a really important spot here is Azarenka is able to get her way to an advantage here after a tight juice point there. I think that's the thing with the women's game at the moment. We've had this phase over the last decade, probably from 2006 to 2016. You kind of had Serena at the top of the game, playing quite a powerful game, and you had those players coming through outside of probably Kvitova. You had a lot of counter-punching players who were perhaps a little bit reliant on the powerful plays to be a little bit off their game. But you look at Halep and Kerber and Wozniacki and Radwanska and all these players who, that they're all similar to an extent in that they've got great court coverage and they don't have the ability to sometimes put away those power players. You fast forward now to 2020, you've got Osaka, you've got Andreescu, you've got Barty, who's got a powerful serve and a bit of variety but can still hit through players. You've got even going down as far as the likes of Bencic, Sabalenka. There's a lot that the frame and the style of play has changed quite a bit.
I agree. It's been really fun to watch. I was disappointed that Andreescu wasn't playing here. As good as this tournament's been, I think it would be even better with her involved. Now, Azarenka gets the hold there. Big point for Serena. See if she can force this to continue. Ooh, she finally gets a net cord in her favor there. We're at 15-15. Oh, no. Serena's starting to do the half-crying face. That's not a good sign. That is not a good... Did you see that? She just turned and did like the exasperated, like, ah. I hope she's not starting to cramp. But Azarenka looks fresh, man. She
does. And look, this is a big spot here for Serena serving. Look, we talked about it, the advantage of serving first. If Azarenka can break here and put that pressure on Serena, that we haven't seen a lot. We've seen her drop first sets, but outside of that Sakkari early third set, we haven't seen significant late game pressure on Serena here at the US Open. If she can start to put a bit of pressure on it, it'll make things a little bit interesting.
Absolutely. I think we're going to get a third set, and I think it's going to be really fun. Well, I hope it's going to be really fun. I hope that what we're watching Serena do here isn't like did you see the little squat thing, whatever that was she just did?
Mm-hmm.
She's starting to overdo the drama.
So that's 2 set points here for Azarenka. Again, look, as we said, Serena does look a little bit tired, but there's one advantage for Serena is that, look, we're on the brink here of a third set, and it's only been 68 minutes, so 70 minutes of play. So Azarenka takes the second set, 6-3, and we're heading to a decider.
This is really great tennis from Azarenka. I'm really impressed by her ability to, get breadstick there in the first set, come back and fight through this. This is going to be really interesting. I mean, we saw Serena fight back in the third set the other day. I wonder if she has that in her. And she's got the half-crying face thing going. She's not moving so well. I mean, credit to her, honestly, that anybody at her age could be playing tennis this well at all. But, just from a purely trying to pick some value out of this. So looking here, Azarenka live is the favorite, -155. Serena +120. Wow. I think that says everything you need to know about this match. I mean, pre-market Azarenka was the favorite. We're now even, one set apiece going into the third, and Azarenka is actually a bigger favorite than what she closed. Again, I think that speaks volume about how the market respects Serena and her physical fitness at this point. Do you see any value at Serena, frankly, at this point, +120?
I need to say, look, I guess this is unfamiliar territory for her for the US Open, because in her other 3-set matches, she's come from a set down and been able to kind of use that momentum to come into the third. Whereas this now, she's on the back foot. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this first service game for Azarenka plays out.
100%. Man, this is going to be fun. I'm glad we got a third set after that first set. I know we were a little worried about this being over quickly, but I think this is going to be really interesting. It's just fun to get to watch a great athlete's career like this towards the end. When you watch a lot of other sports, I don't think that athletes kind of have the same staying power that maybe they do in tennis. So it's just fun to watch somebody's play like Serena like this for so long. You start to think of other sports. Maybe baseball can do that, but football players generally have very short careers. Basketball players generally have shorter careers, unless you're somebody like Tim Duncan. But it's just let's remember how lucky we are to get to watch Serena Williams, probably the greatest tennis player of all time, continuing to be competitive. I mean, how old is Serena Williams by now? I know she's not 40 because Venus is 40.
Late 30s off the top of my head.
38. You're watching 38-year-old Serena Williams be competitive in a semifinal of a Grand Slam.
And I think when you think back to a couple of years ago, we probably never thought that we would see a Azarenka Williams deep in a Grand Slam ever again. So to be able to have this opportunity here, we've got a third set. It's going to be really fascinating viewing. I'll just have a quick look at the stats here up on the screen. So that's set 2, Azarenka, 79% of first serves in play. This makes such a massive difference to her game.
Nice first point by Serena. But by the way, this is one of the things I've been saving. Do you know how many times Serena Williams and Victoria Azarenka have played before tonight?
A lot.
Give me a guess.
I'm not going to. Oh.
Come on, give me a guess. Don't whip out. There's only one of you. Pick a number. It's between 0 and 30.
14.
22 times. Serena Williams is 18-4 against Victoria Azarenka. The amazing part is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of those matches have been in finals. It's one of the stranger head-to-heads I've ever seen. I've never seen anybody play this many finals against somebody else. So I know this is a semifinal, but they play in a lot of high-pressure matches, and love 30 Serena. So if history is any indicator, now the last time they played was 2019 in Indian Wells. Serena beat Azarenka in the round of 64, which is the second round there. But the match before that's 2016. So there is a lot of history here, but it's old. Love 30 again. Now we've got a second serve here for Azarenka. We know how dangerous that can be. Serena well inside the baseline. Let's see what she tries to fire off here. Nice backhand. And flares one out. So Serena's starting to miss her spots again. Still 15-30 though. I don't know how they play with necklaces. It's always been confusing for me.
We might need spread on next time for that one. We can ask him how he...
That's true. I bet he wears a lot of necklaces. We look at like somebody like Zverev. Zverev's got like 3 chains hanging around his neck. That has to be confusing, or at least distracting.
Yeah, I don't understand it.
Long point. Azarenka gets us back to 30-30. And Azarenka didn't do anything difficult there. She was just kind of hitting it back, waiting for Serena to spray it out. Serena now. She's not back at the crying face, but we're getting closer. Exasperation is building.
Yeah, I was about to use the term exasperated. I feel like it fits well.
Really does. This is starting to feel like the game that might determine the set.
certainly a key moment, particularly considering the love 30. Serena had. It's an opportunity that could slip her by to be able to try and wrestle back some of that momentum that she completely lost over the last 30 minutes.
It's going to be tough for Serena to use as much energy and lose this point, but second serve blows that way outside. Now she's picking at her eye. I hope she's not going to complain she had something in her eye in the third set. I just hope that if Serena loses, she has a reasonable press conference.
Or a press conference at all.
I'd be fine if she skipped. That'd be okay. I'd rather her not show up than complain the whole time.
True.
Great point from Azarenka. That's awesome. Great for her to go from love 40, love 30 down to win the game 40-30. That's really nice.
Ooh, so we'll come back to that one in a little bit and see that could be another turning point. There was obviously that moment where she was able to save a break point early in set 2, and now she's been able to dig herself out of a love 30 holder to start this third.
Azarenka out to minus 200 live. Minus 210 now. Azarenka taking a lot of money here.
And again, just to kind of, I know I'm harping on it about it a bit, but 5 out of 6 first serves in the play in that first service game there for Azarenka, so it did help her out of that hole.
That's okay. I mean, you're harping on something important. It's definitely dictated Azarenka's play. Wow, look at Serena attack the net there. I'm going to miss that when she retires.
Mm-hmm.
I like players that attack the net. I like the players that go and try to be more aggressive and shorten up points like that. I think it's more fun. I think it's more interesting. I don't necessarily know if that's the right thing to do, but I'm really going to miss her desire to come up and try to shorten points like that. That was really impressive. That was fun to watch.
That would be, I know Jorge isn't with us this evening, but loves a drive volley. Does Jorge?
He does. Perfect ace there by Serena. What a treat. I mean, somebody that we're constantly doubting but can never count out.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the thing that, Serena will know that she's come out of a couple of situations over the last fortnight where things perhaps haven't gone her way. And, Azarenka has had a number of comfortable wins, but it will be, that she was probably a little bit shaky in finishing off Mahova the other day, considering she was injured. So look, it'll be a really interesting, I'm going to say, 30 minutes, just based off the first couple of sets going for 35 minutes and 36 minutes, respectively.
Did it stay in? Nope, it went out. So the other thought I just had, have you ever seen a less sweaty person in the third set of a match of tennis than Azarenka right now?
Zachary.
Show her. Take a look. She looks pretty dry.
Zachary probably against Serena in the Western and Southern Open. I think when we were on the live stream.
It's definitely possible that I made the exact same comment. Ooh, another good point at net. Azarenka finally got one there. That was fun.
Very nice drop shot. And look, you can see that Serena struggles a little bit when she has to hit up and over the net when she's coming into the net there. And it's that comfort level of Azarenka to be able to come in and feel comfortable behind her ability to volley that's held her in good stead there as we get back to 40-30, which is now going to be a big point coming up here for Serena.
Wow. That was great. Azarenka looks just absolutely on fire right now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I just saw something interesting. They just showed net point stats. They said Serena was 7 for 11, and they said that Azarenka was 5 for 8. How could they have different total points at net?
So it's points that they've come into the net. So it's Azarenka. So if they both come into the net, then it counts as a point at net for both. But if it's only one of them, so if someone's serving volleys and comes
Serena's hurt,
then that will only count for that particular player.
Okay. Serena's hurt. I also, by the way, don't agree with that methodology. If someone comes to net, that's a net point. So here we go. We're at deuce and Serena taking an MTO.
Mm-hmm.
Grabbing her ankle. Let's just hope this is an MTO and not a Yastremska. I get the feeling from her that when she's hurt, she's actually hurt. But
yeah, it's a bit tricky to know. We'll have a look and see if there's a replay here.
yeah, they're showing it again. It doesn't look like she rolled her ankle at all.
I don't think there's anything. It's tricky because you look at.
Like, if it's anything, I thought it should be her right ankle, but doesn't she grab her left?
Is it the push off to go back? I'm trying to figure it. It's like every time, a player like Monfils or someone has a medical timeout, you're trying to figure out where it's happened. She's got a weird mix of, it looks a little bit funny. Maybe
it's her left. It looked like her right ankle actually had more trouble in that set. Do you think it might be an Achilles thing, maybe?
I don't know. It almost, from the general push off, it almost looked like a foot as opposed to ankle, kind of like a midfoot kind of.
And looking at the doctor here, now I'm someone that's had a lot of treatment from people like this versus given treatment, whereas you have more experience in that. What do you see in here? It looks like she's kind of doing pressure points on her foot, turning her ankle. Again, this to me looks like an ankle treatment more than anything else.
Looking at it, I mean, look, as we were talking about before with those shoes, they're quite high, but there's no ankle support through the top of them. That being said, her ankles are so heavily strapped that it just means generally when you tape something, look, the ankle should be relatively supported, which is probably why we didn't see any particular big roll of the ankle. But look, it might be a case of maybe something through the foot there at the point where the tape ends, because that's kind of the first point of releasing distance if there's strain coming through. But look, it's a little bit of a funny one. It'll be interesting to see. I've just got a comment here. So Serena Williams is currently taking a medical timeout for her foot, serving at Deuce at Love 1.
An official came over to check on her. I don't have the sound on here, so I don't know what the commentary going on. So I don't know if she's getting pressure to work her way through this quickly, but it looks like whoever is treating her is going to cut the tape off her ankle. She just pulled some scissors out and a brand new set of tape. So, yeah, they keep showing the same point, and again, I'm no medical professional. I'm just somebody that's played a lot of basketball and frisbee and ankle-heavy kind of stuff. I mean, I've rolled my ankle more times than I can choose to remember. I just assume my tendons down there are just like elastic.
Yeah, look, maybe it's on the push-off to try and get over to that forehand. I mean, the other thing with that left foot is that it's her landing foot off her serve as well, so it is going to cause her a little bit of grief here.
So it looks like she just started taping. This looks to me like she's just going to tape her ankle some more. And also, how is Azarenka staying that focused with a bug on her face? Did you see that? They just shot Azarenka, and she's sitting there like perfectly calm and still, and like, I don't know, some ant or something like landed on her face and was walking around. And she's just, credit to her. That is, that takes some mental strength. So I'm sorry to cut you off after I asked you a question. But, again, based on what I know, it looks like they're just going to retape her ankle.
It looks like, they've got the softer material that she kind of has as a constant that she wears, throughout all of her matches. And it looks like they're just going to go for a more rigid tape over the top of it to kind of stop it. Yes, she has those kind of high. It looks like her shoes are probably more supported than they actually are, because they are quite soft through the top there. So her shoes are going to do nothing in terms of ankle support. It's more around her brace and taping. So look, it'll be interesting through this first serve when she comes back, how she goes landing on that ankle.
It's, again, in a match that during the middle of the first set it would be boring. We now have a very interesting match. Bug still on Azarenka's face. Oh, there we go. It finally left. That's an incredible amount of focus. Look at this. Oh my God. How's she even going to get that shoe on? Like, maybe she's not going to have to wear any socks. This is so weird. I mean, and again, it's, we're going a little inside baseball here. Someone that's worn a lot of tape on his foot like that. Like, you're not just putting your shoe on after that. Yeah.
So look, it shouldn't feel too different for Serena when she's used to having her ankle taped. So it's just a little bit more so than what we've seen in the past. But look, it's going to take a little bit of time to kind of get the hang of it, and that's the last thing you want, serving a deuce at love one in the third set of a Grand Slam semi-final.
Now, this is, again, another thing. I know you're a little better about the rules than I am, but I don't remember the last time I saw a clock on a medical timeout. What the heck were they just counting down?
Yeah, so it's the actual assessment from the trainer doesn't count towards the medical timeout, but I think the medical timeouts themselves are 3 minutes.
Okay, so what if it takes more than 3 minutes for her to tape your ankle?
Well, that's on the trainer to. That's why they have the best trainers to be able to do their job in a quick time frame.
What a weird situation for the trainers. I know that all these injuries with tennis are really tough, but that doesn't seem like a reasonable solution. It seems like you're putting medical professionals in a hurry.
Mm-hmm. Now,
like, imagine you do your diagnosis, go in, start moving around, and like, well, actually, maybe it's this. But we only have a minute and a half left, so get back out there.
I was just going to say, it looked like Flash Scorer made a bit of a mistake there, flipping this to advantage Williams when it is actually break point. But a great save.
Back. Yeah, she has some more energy.
I think she's just trying to get used to the ankle strapping. I don't think it's the same type of movement we saw from Azarenka early in that second set of trying to rev herself up. I think she's just trying to get the hang of, how much movement she has in that ankle.
It's just nice to see her move her legs and win a point. I mean, she moved left, right, and was able to save the break point there. So maybe the couple minutes of break. Did that second serve go in? I guess it did. Again, I'd be the worst lines person in the world, but I swear that was out.
And this is all Azarenka at the moment.
It's tennis is drama, man. This is fascinating. How often do you get to see some of the greatest athletes in the world up close like this, all by themselves?
Mm-hmm.
You start to think about sports. I mean, even soccer. They're not wearing masks or anything, but they very rarely do long close-ups on individual players. Basketball, same thing. And here is just two people all alone out here. Serena gets broken. Azarenka now winning 4 straight games. Serena's dress now stuck under whatever she's wearing under it.
Alrighty, so Azarenka has now found herself in the same position that Maria Sakkari had against Serena earlier in the tournament, up a break in the third set.
Yeah, great serve by Azarenka there.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually impressed that Serena even got a racket on it, let alone almost got that in. What do you think of the Azarenka karate headband, by the way? Kind of like it.
Yeah, not bad.
It's like an ode to your boy Jimmy Butler, huh?
Yes, I am quite happy with how my Miami Heat have been going. Thank you very much for asking.
Very excited to bet on them in whatever the next series is.
Who do you think it'll be?
I think it's going to be Toronto. We've got Game 7 tomorrow night. I think it's going to be very close. But what's concerned me with Boston this entire series, in these close games, they've spent time arguing with refs, whereas Toronto just sort of keeps playing. Like, we're just going to keep playing, and maybe we'll figure it out. Maybe we won't. Wow, that's the most Serena's worked for a point in, what do you think, since the first set?
I think so, yep.
That's impressive. Look at that, to get all the way at net, to work all the way back like that. Oh. But I like the Heat. I think you guys are the favorites to win the Eastern Conference at this point. I think the Clippers are going to win the title, so don't get your hopes too high, but you guys should at least be getting to the finals. All right, Serena now has like a half-crying face. So my only experience growing up watching tennis, I did not grow up in a big tennis household, but we used to like watching Agassi matches, and I think I've told this story before, but he used to get this kind of like, it's like a half crying, kind of confused, we used to call it the squirrely face. Like, he just looks squirrely. And it's funny watching Serena. She has kind of, that was really fun. I like watching those cross-court angle points like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the more interesting things about tennis, that you can get players like at kind of those, like just the fact that you can hit it around the post even if you want. That's the fun. It's interesting to me that the net is finite left to right like that.
it just adds that another, in some instances it just looks, in a lot of matches it's just that kind of, adding that extra dimension of angle and how players are able to utilize it is massive. Big spot here for Azarenka, 2-love, 30-all. She did have 30-love after that long point did kind of go the way of Serena Williams, but we've got here, she's just about to eke ahead here, serving now for a 3-love lead, and that's the type of miss. And we talked about it at the start that Serena's going to step in and she's going to live and die a little bit by that. It worked for her in the first set. It is certainly not working for her now.
No, it's been tough for the last 2 sets. She just keeps hitting balls right into the net. Again, maybe it's a fitness thing. I don't know as much as I should about stuff like that, but her footwork is deteriorated. She's not moving, and she just keeps burying backhands into the net. Did Serena challenge there?
Mm-hmm.
Because Azarenka is jumping up and down like she was winning. Yeah, look, again, I have no idea, but that looked okay to me. Yeah, right on the line. Oh boy, this could get ugly fast.
It has the look. It has the look of the Sakkari Serena game of the Western and Southern Open, doesn't it?
It really does. Serena, it doesn't look like she's cramping yet, so I don't see any physical deterioration beyond being tired or stuff like that. But there is not any positivity on the Williams' face or in her body language. And while we have a minute here, what were you thinking tomorrow? We've got 2 very good men's matches now. I know that Pablo Carreno Busta was not the person that everybody had in the semifinals against Alex Zverev, but I think that should be pretty competitive. And Medvedev team might be the best non-Big 3 match in 15, 20 years. What do you think?
Yeah, my previews I think are up on the Betfair site now. In the first semi-final, I am heading down the Sasha Zverev path, -4.5 games. I think when you look at what Carreno Busta has been able to do over the tournament, I mean, obviously he got taken to 5 sets by Uchiyama in the first round. He's just struggled a little bit at times, kind of consolidating his good work, and I think he got the better of Shapovalov in the quarterfinal, and his lack of experience, I think, in the moment. I think the Canadians thought that it was going to be one-way traffic for him after taking the 4th set 6-love and then having that medical timeout, and I think he was taken a little bit by surprise. Another key thing out of that was Carreno Busta's the first 3 times he broke the Shapovalov serve for that match, he wasn't able to consolidate it, and Shapovalov was able to get things back on even terms. I just don't think he's going to get those inexperienced kind of moments that against a player like Zverev. I think Zverev has shown, the quarterfinal against Coric was not a very pleasing match to watch visually, but he's finding ways to get it done. And I think, if he can start well there, that -4.5 looking pretty good there for Zverev. And in the other semi-final,
before you get there. So what you described for me with PCB was, him just kind of working people and waiting for them to lose. So do you think Zverev has finally gotten over his slam jitters? Like you said, he hasn't had the collapse that we've seen in the past so far. But I think that when everybody thinks about Zverev, even people that don't know tennis know that Alex Zverev generally falls apart in some of these matches. So do you think this might be the year he kind of overcomes and takes that mental step forward? Is that what you're starting to see from him?
I think the semi-final appearance in Melbourne this year has made a massive difference for him. I think he was able to get over the hump, and he played some really good matches through there. He absolutely wiped Verdasco off the court, and then got the better of Stan Wawrinka, who was in pretty good form, having beaten Medvedev. I think that run has really given him a lot of confidence that he can actually match it, and I think he's now got his body to a level where he can withstand some of these longer matches. And I think when he does fall down, like he did to Coric down a set in a break, he actually has belief that he could, if he does turn it around, his body can actually hold up and he can be out there for a longer period of time. That being said, I was against Zverev earlier in the tournament with Mannarino because I thought Mannarino had a bit of variety, and he's not going to get consistent. He's not going to give Zverev the same look consistently. I just don't think there's enough variety in the Carreno Busta game to be able to. I feel like Zverev's going to get into a rhythm here, and he's going to look pretty good for long patches. Going to the other semi-final, just as Serena's here now serving at 40-15, which is a really crucial game for her here, and did have love 15. We do need to remember, though, she did lose her serve from 40 love up here at the start of the set.
Yep, we've got a second serve right now. So let's see. Nice second serve. Yep, that was good. Good point by her. So you're going. Go ahead. What are you seeing in Team Medvedev?
Medvedev and Team is a really interesting one. I mean, looking at the books, you've got Medvedev as a slight favourite.
Although Team has taken money.
Team has taken money, and I, over best of 5, I would give the edge to Team. I feel like he's shown that he's got the fitness and the ability to go for 4+ hours against anyone on court, including Nadal, including Djokovic. He can stay there all night and hang with the best of them. Medvedev did struggle late in that third set against Rublev. I'm not reading too much into it because it felt like a little bit of a veteran move there to take a medical timeout and just take a little bit of a breather. But the things did tighten up a bit in that third set tiebreak, and I would love to have seen what a fourth set had in store for us. My preference with this match in particular is I'm going to actually side with Medvedev to take the first set. I'd rather oppose Team over a smaller sample size of one set instead of the best of 5 format. Medvedev has been serving well and has started matches particularly well. He didn't get taken to juice for the entirety of that match against Rublev. And whenever he's actually lost serve during this tournament, he's already been up a double break or a break in those sets. So I think he starts well and he's a good kind of momentum runner. Team struggled a little bit early in that match against Demonor, even in that first set, and where he's looked a little bit vulnerable has been in a couple of those first sets. So my play for, considering you kind of get 2 or 3 cents more on the first set play for Medvedev compared to the full match, the appeal for me lay with Medvedev to take the first set. I think the first set's actually more important for him in these conditions.
That's a really interesting angle. I like that you explain that, because I was going to jump on you and say, what do you see about first set versus the rest? I think you make another good point also about Medvedev. He is a player that has a history of cramping and struggling in some of these longer matches. Now he's got a chance. They've got a little bit of break since they don't have to play until tomorrow. But I am wondering why there's, in the tennis community, it seemed like a lot of people that I know liked Medvedev and thought that he should have been a bigger favorite. But as you start to look at the market, you look at Pinnacle, you look at some of those bigger sites, Team has taken a bunch of money. So I think it's just going to be a fun match. To be honest, I think it's a true coin flip. I'd have it again, minus 110 each way, something like that. But it should be a lot of fun. Tough net point there. We're 30-30 here. Serena just, she's doing the eye roll thing. She's talking to herself. Oof.
At least she laughed that one off.
It's just a shame. She was in control at that point. But you're right, she did laugh it off. And for those, again, who maybe are a little behind, Azarenka is going to put one right into the top of the net that ends up being just the perfect drop shot. I wonder if anybody aims for the top of the net. Seems like something I would do if I really tried to play tennis. Just be a dick and just try to constantly win net balls.
It's the advantage of hitting cross court. The net is a little bit lower there in the middle.
Azarenka just building confidence here. Man, she looks good. What a nice point there. Take Serena.
Now, question: if you're Naomi Osaka, who would you rather play, considering where this match lies at the moment? And
Serena. I've beaten Serena on this court. I've beaten Serena on this court in the finals. I know that all I have to do is work Serena for 3 sets to get her out of shape, to get her fatigued a little bit. And besides the first set today, and again, I didn't see the first set of Mahova, but Azarenka's played the best 2 weeks of tennis of anybody. I think it's hard to say that. I mean, especially after Jen Brady lost today, because Osaka's here, but I don't know if she's been terribly impressive. I don't even know if her win over Brady today was terribly impressive. But again, besides the Mahova match, Osaka's just been ripping people apart. So I'm sorry, Azarenka. Azarenka has just been ripping people apart. Again, besides the first set Mahova and the first set here. So if I'm Osaka, I really want Serena here. I'm actually going to pull up. I wonder if Osaka's even played Azarenka before. Do you know the answer to that?
I don't think they've played any significant matches off the top of my head.
What a cop-out answer. Come on, have they played or not?
I would say no, they haven't, but I'll have a little bit of a look. Oh, they played a while back. Oh, no, they did play, sorry. It was the French Open last year.
French Open last year, Rome the year before that, and then 2016 at the Australian Open. So they've actually played, and they were supposed to play in Cincinnati, but it was a walkover because Azarenka was, Osaka was, I guess, carrying the hamstring injury at that point too much. So we'll pass out that. But yeah, look at that. 2 Grand Slam final matches here. I'm seeing Osaka 2-1 actually in those. They played 3 sets in Roland Garros. Osaka beat her in Rome, 2 clay matches, and then Australian Open is 2016, so who cares?
I would carry next to no weight to any of that head-to-head.
None. There's absolutely none. It's all old. It's all long surfaces.
Azarenka 2016 pre-child, I think. Let me do the maths. Yeah. You've got clay on Azarenka's return, and then you've got French Open last year. 2019 Azarenka to 2020 Azarenka, you can't really compare them. It's, the fact maybe you actually took us to a third is something that perhaps is of interest, but then also thinking that, Osaka obviously didn't want to risk her hamstring against a player like Azarenka in the Cincinnati final a couple of weeks ago.
Absolutely. So yeah, Azarenka holds there. Let's see if Serena can hold here. Now, so what have you thought, by the way, about the power of moms in this tournament? We've had a great mom showing. We have 2 moms in the semifinal here. Perankova, as far as I'm concerned, easily the choice for surprise of the tournament. Mm-hmm. What do you think about the mom strength, Steve? Is the WTA now the League of Moms?
Well, I wonder if the likes of Agnieszka Radwanska, Ivanovic, Cibulkova, all these players who have left the tour recently to have kids, and even then you think about, that if we're looking at one person's comeback in particular, it was Kim Clijsters that we kind of all had our eye on. Are we going to see more players, come back to the tour after having children?
That's an interesting point. I hadn't considered that. It's not something that I've tracked. I'm trying to think if anybody's left recently to do that. But you're right, it should be. I mean, again, you look at Perankova. I've been a tennis fan for a little while now, but I've only really been seriously following it for 2, maybe 3 seasons. I had no idea who she even was. And she came back, and what an incredible run for her. That's an interesting point. I like that.
And you can see there that you can probably come back with, I think the rules, and there's a little bit more flexibility in the rules now for players returning to the tour after having a child. And we've seen that success, although it hasn't come with Grand Slams. Serena's come back and played at a high level. Perankova has gone from having no ranking to, I think she's sitting now currently around 145 in the world, just off 1 tournament. There's the potential here to come back. I think one of the other players who's just stepped away, who's pregnant again, was, I think, Mandy Manella. I think is currently, or is about to have another child.
That sounds about right.
It's an interesting little position here for a couple of players that you wonder whether that they might return and have another. There's no harm in having a crack, and I feel like you see with Bronco, you can come back with you can come back and make the most of some opportunities. That there's a little bit of money to be made to maybe help put that child through college.
Something like that. It's just been wild to me. It's just a great time to be a fan of the WTA. There's just so much going on. I mean, tournament to tournament, it's just, you have no idea. I can't believe that anybody picked this Final Four, let alone had a great read on this tournament. I mean, again, the outright markets had Osaka and Serena. I don't know if that was necessarily very hard, given their draws and things like that. But what a fun time! All right, Serena holds. She's trying.
I think when I go back and look back at the preview of this tournament in particular, I think it's one of those tricky ones when you're looking for value in an outright market, because I felt like before the tournament that probably the value in Brady and Azarenka probably wasn't there. because of such, it's not acknowledging, it's not suggesting that their form wasn't good. You just look at their odds, when the tour returned, and you look at their odds at day one of the US Open. A lot of it, I was able to get Jennifer Brady to win Lexington a couple of weeks ago, so she was nice. She was good to me then. But I just didn't feel like there was value in their prices at patches through this tournament. That being said, they've obviously played very, very well and have both made it to the Final Four. And it looks like Azarenka here is, 6 points away from another Grand Slam final.
She really does. This is just, man, she's playing some impressive tennis. I would disagree with you about Brady's price. I liked her at mid-30s before this tournament. Azarenka was low 20s, I think. And we talked about her draw earlier. Let me go ahead and pull that back up again, because I don't think we can talk enough about how unbelievably difficult of a pass she's had. And you look at Azarenka, her first match is Haas, but pretty much everybody here had an easy first-round match. Then she goes Sabalenka, Swiatek, Mahova, Mertens, like an absolutely on fire Mertens too. And now she's got Serena here. I mean, that's the toughest path of anybody in this draw. As you start to look at Brady, her big concern was getting over Pliskova, but Caroline Garcia took care of her for that. Once you get past that, her only real tough match is really against Osaka. You start to look at it. She beat Blinkova 6-3, 6-2. She beat Bellis 6-1, 6-2. Beat Garcia 3-3. Beat Kerber 1-4. Beat Putintseva 3-2. So she had a pretty easy path. I don't feel bad about taking her as an outright, even though it's going to end up being a loser. But I agree. I think Azarenka, if anybody's out there going, "Oh, I should have bet her at 20-1," I don't think that you should lose a whole lot of sleep over that.
Looking through it, I think Serena had a couple of tough battles. She got Sloane Stephens, I think, in a second round, and Zachary in a third or fourth. I'm trying to backtrack in my mind over those particular matches. So she had a couple of names who on potential could challenge, but look, it was always going to be the way, I think, with these. When you take a little chunk of the top 50 out, that things are going to be things will open up for some players just based purely on where they are in the draw. And conversely, look over to the men. A lot of my interest in the preview was to try and find workarounds to avoid the first quarter because Novak Djokovic was in there. And then all of a sudden, you accidentally or inadvertently hit a ball with a line person's throat, and the value all of a sudden becomes everything in the first quarter because...
Do you have anything interesting to say about that, by the way?
I applaud the tournament directors for making the call they did. I think there was a lot of pressure on that moment, and it was probably lucky that they were in an empty stadium. There is an irony in Djokovic actually hitting someone in an empty stadium that...
Well, I'm sure that you've seen my favorite clip that's been floating around for this entire thing. There's an interview at the end of some tournament, and some reporter asks Djokovic a seemingly innocuous question about, like, are you concerned that any of these little things might catch up to you after a while? And Djokovic basically goes out of his way to try and embarrass the guy. And then, in this tournament does exactly what he was talking about. For me, the interesting part was when you go back and rewatch the highlight, I'd like to know if he thought that was like a ball person or something, because he turned and looked in that direction. I mean, he turns, he looks, and then he hits the ball. And then he's like, why didn't that person catch the ball? Did they not know the ball was coming? It was one of the more bizarre things that I've ever seen on a tennis court, in sports in general, frankly, let alone a tennis court. I agree with you, though. Tons of credit to the staff there. Anybody having to make that decision. I was impressed with the fact that they were confident enough to make that decision. Admittedly, I don't entirely know if that's the right decision. I don't know if he did that with malice, which I think is very important. But, kudos to those guys for standing up and doing what they believe to be the right thing.
Yeah, and I think when you look back over other situations at lower levels as well, they've followed the rule book correctly. That, yes, he didn't intentionally hit the lines person, but as soon as you hit a ball in that manner, he needs to acknowledge, he needs to accept the responsibility of what comes as a result. Now, no one's saying that he did it on purpose, but in that particular moment, he needs to acknowledge that the consequences of hitting that ball are on him. And in this particular instance, that actually, did strike someone. I remember 2016 at the French Open, I actually opposed him with Tom Spurdick, and he threw his racket and just missed a lines person. I think he was in complete control in that match, and it came out of nowhere. It's he's got form in the area, and it was just probably a matter of time before something happened. And for him, it's probably happened at the most unfortunate time in a Grand Slam, where he was the raging favourite, and I think probably in a frustrating manner for a number of people in that match, including some people I know who were on Carreño Busta in that match in play after that little start of a meltdown, was that it didn't happen one game later because all bets were voided at 6-5 in the first set with a default.
Yeah. It's so the one thing that I will agree with, again, when I look at that specific moment, I don't know if Novak deserved to be thrown out of the tournament. Again, I'm not terribly familiar with the rules. I think that's an incredibly difficult situation for the judges to be in. The fact that she was hurt so gravely, the fact that she couldn't continue to do her job and they had to replace her, I think is meaningful to me. But what I do agree 100% with all the criticism is kind of what you were talking about. Novak has this arrogance about him. Like, he gets to do whatever he wants on a tennis court. Like, he is in some way, shape, or form above what was going on. And even in that incident, the fact that they spent so much time talking with him, seemingly arguing with him, I think speaks to that privilege, frankly. I wonder if any other player really would have gotten that much time from an official on court before they made a decision. I thought it was really interesting that it took him that long to get to that point. But I do give him some credit. He seems to have taken responsibility for the fact that he made a mistake. I don't know if he's admitted his culpability as exactly as maybe he should, but I think he's willing to admit he's made a mistake. And one of the things I like that you pointed out, I do appreciate his support for the lineswoman. I think that anyone that has done anything to attack her, all the people that have gone out and found her Instagram accounts, and I've heard stories of people, commenting horrible things on pictures from like 10 years ago. Like, get a life, people. Like, what are you doing? She just stood there and got hit by a tennis ball. It's not her fault that Novak Djokovic got defaulted from the U.S. Open. Like, that's just so gross. And I appreciate that Novak reached out to her, tried to support her, tried to talk, his fans out of that. I think he may have even reached out to her directly to try to support her a little bit. And, I hope that she's the kind of person that can look past all that stuff. But at the end of the day, to me, the most disgusting thing is the behavior of anyone that's gone after her as a result of this. I mean, that's just gross.
And I think that's tricky. And look, obviously, we've got a big moment here. It's not the first time I think Azarenka served for a match in a particularly key moment against Serena Williams. So we'll see if she can find that first serve a couple of times here. Yeah, look, and I do sympathise. I mean, you can't help but feel a little bit. A very good start there for Azarenka. You can't help but feel a little bad for some of these big stars in terms of that there are fans and supporters of them that will support them and back them in regardless of what they've done. And I think we saw that here, that it was, some of the responses were interesting, to say the least, for a number of reasons.
What a great forehand. Azarenka 30 love.
It's a very good time to find the line, isn't it?
It really is. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Just wanted to give that update. I like where you're going with that, if you want to continue.
It must be tricky when needing to kind of calm your own fan base who will support someone regardless of what they've done. Like it would be incredibly difficult to manage that situation. But yeah, look, I actually think tennis, weirdly enough, may be in a better place when Federer, Williams, Nadal, and Djokovic have all retired. I think there's a cultish stance to some of the fan bases that make it really difficult. That I feel like there are Serena fans, there are Novak fans, there are Federer fans, there are Nadal fans, but then across on the other side of the page, there are also tennis fans. And I feel like as those players start to retire, we may see more of a kind of controlled and King Curiosity's in the chat. And then there are Chris O'Connell fans, which I would agree with.
I like what you were working your way up to. And one of the examples I saw that this week, which, by the way, just to stop again for an update, Serena won a really nice point there. I saw somebody release a list of the most entertaining men's tennis players to watch, and they put Federer first. Federer hasn't played this year.
Yeah.
Double fault for Azarenka. Wow. From 30 love back to 30-30. Now she's giggling at herself. We're back to a tense moment here, Stephen.
At least she can laugh it off. It's if we've seen anything from Azarenka through this last kind of 45 to 60 minutes, it's her ability to kind of laugh off and shrug off those missed opportunities and take control again, as she has done here. She'd now bring to that point. Look, that list was horrible. And the reason it's horrible is because they're all top 30 players. And if you have a desire or an interest in tennis in any capacity, you're going to get, and I think my response to that particular tweet was just basically anyone who plays at challenger level.
That's what I liked about the Chris O'Connell response. I know King Kyrgios was making a joke, but real tennis fans, their favorite players aren't the top ranked ones. I mean, you look at somebody like, again, our buddy King Kyrgios is one of the biggest tennis fans I know, and he loves guys like Chris O'Connell. And it's exactly like you said. I loved your response to that. I saw that. Basically any challenger player.
What a way to win it.
Oh, is that it? Oh, the line's call. There we go. Victoria Azarenka going to the final.
1-6, 6-3, 6-3. I do wonder, what did the line close at? Was it Serena plus 1.5?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Was the closing line Serena plus 1.5? I'd have to have a bit of a look.
Wow. I got odds portal open in front of me here. Hold on a second. Asian handicap. Serena Williams plus 1.5. Yeah, that was pretty much the closing number at Pinnacle. That closed minus 106 each way, which is just about the closing number either way. Wow.
Alrighty. Now, if we have a quick look at the stats just before we finish up here, and we've talked about it quite a bit over the last 2 hours. Azarenka, first set, 52% of first serves into play. Set 2, up that to 79. Set 3 was able to maintain that at 76. It's one of the key parts that was so crucial in this turnaround, particularly when she found herself in a real danger spot, down a set and break point early in set 2.
Jeez. So what do you think the opening line here is going to be for Azarenka Osaka, by the way? It's really tough. This might be one of the more closely lined Grand Slam finals we've ever had. I mean, you start to look at this match. Azarenka opens, again, depending on what book you were looking at. I saw her as much as, I think, Bet365 opened her like plus 114. I saw some plus 106s, plus 108s. She closes pretty much minus 130 across the board. So we know the market is supporting her. Looking at the Osaka match, as good as Brady's been playing and as much as a favorite Osaka was, she opened around minus 220, minus 230, closed at minus 250. So we've had a bunch of support across the way. What do you... I'd make Osaka the favorite. I think that she is more talented than Azarenka is, but I don't know if I'd go any more than, again, if I'm making book, I don't know if I'm going any more than Osaka, like minus 150 or 1.67 if you're using decimal odds. What do you think? And again, that's just if I'm making book. I don't know if that's the true line. I'm just trying to guess what it might open.
Yeah. And look, it's probably going to depend a lot on a lot of books and what they have in terms of holds for both of these players from an outright perspective as well. Obviously, Osaka was a very heavy favorite here. And they may need to try and be a little bit safer here in the final. I would probably, and this is, needing to look into it a little bit more, and my preview will be up tomorrow. I would probably have Osaka around the kind of $1.70 to $1.75 range. Just thinking off the top of my head, looking through Osaka's draw, the main struggle she had before this one with Brady was, she was taken to a third set by Doi and taken to a third set by Kostyuk. Both players who are a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more counter-punchy in terms of their play particularly off the return of serve, and probably fit the bill of and then the mold of Azarenka a little bit more. Obviously, Azarenka is a significant step up in terms of quality of opponent with that style. you take into account that that Osaka has obviously acknowledged through the Western and Southern Open that she didn't want to play that final because the style of play that Azarenka produces was going to put a bit of strain on that hamstring as well, that she was a little bit worried about. It's going to be a tricky one, and probably having a look at perhaps the outright market at Betfair, which I'll do in a little bit, will give us a little bit more of an idea of where things stand at the moment.
King Curios mentioned in the comments that Betfair, and again, I don't know if that's the exchange or Betfair proper, but opening, kind of what I guessed, Osaka minus 150, Azarenka plus 145 or so. I kind of like Azarenka at that number.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think just off what we've seen and from a consistency standpoint, and something from that match today that really stands out is the ability for Azarenka to kind of stop and turn things around there down that set and down an early break point. If you think about from that position, and I did talk about it as well a little bit with Azarenka versus Mertens in terms of that consistency, in terms of trying to exert consistent pressure. That is something that is going to be really key against a player like Osaka, who, you need to continue to kind of knock on the door and go, hey, I'm going to provide a little bit of pressure here. What are you going to do about it? I would probably have preferred Osaka against Serena in terms of the matchup, in terms of, you look at what Osaka's done against Kontaveit and a couple of others recently who are power players. It's going to be an interesting one, and I probably need to think about it as well and look at the weather conditions and what's in store. But looking at how Azarenka finished off that match, it's going to be a test for Osaka, and one that she probably wasn't expecting 90 minutes ago when Serena was up 6-1.
It's going to be so much fun. I'm glad that Azarenka won because it is going to be a lot of fun. I think that this is, like we talked about at the beginning of the broadcast, I think when we got to the semifinals, these are the four best women on planet Earth. If you had to pick 4 women to win a tennis match, I think these are the 4 that you would have come away with. I think that if you had to pick 2, this is arguably the 2 you would have come away with. I think Osaka's an easy pick, and I think anybody who's a shrewd observer of tennis probably would have picked Azarenka. And I also like that their games, as I start to think about them, they have plenty of power. There is not an advantage here. There's not going to be somebody blowing anybody off the court here. I think we're going to get a chance to watch a really good chess match, frankly. I think that both players are creative. They understand the game. Like you talked about with Azarenka, the fact that she was laughing through points, in a way shows her mental strength. The fact that she can kind of take that, blow it off, and continue to come away. We saw her recover from a lot of really tough spots in that second and third set here. So, and the Osaka match too. I mean, she came through and fought through a lot of tough spots against Brady. I couldn't be happier about the final we have. This is going to be great. I'm excited to take whoever opens, frankly, at plus whatever. I think if either player opens more than plus 125 here, I'm going to be involved. But this is going to be a great match.
And look, it is going to be. And look, saying this, and I think, for those of you who followed me and what I've done over the last kind of 8 or so years, look, I can appreciate that. I think this is the final that is going to be the best spectacle, looking beyond obviously selections and plays over the last 24 hours. I think this is a great scenario, and we're probably going to get the best quality tennis. It may not get the most eyes on it from a general public standpoint, but I think from a pure tennis standpoint, it's going to be a fantastic final between Azarenka and Osaka. It'll be interesting. I need to have a look at the weather conditions and what's going to unfold. Obviously, we've had these 2 semifinals played under a roof because of rain in New York. But is this a question for you? Obviously, without notice, do you think this is? Will we see Serena again in 2020? Do you think she'll go to the French Open?
That's a really interesting question. I have not spent even 1 second thinking about that, and I'm going to give you a lot of credit here. This is the first time someone's asked me a question in a long time that I wasn't immediately able to come up with an opinion about. God, I don't know why she would play again. Why would she go to the French? she's not in
nothing.
shape. I mean, she's just going to get blown out if she goes to the French. There doesn't seem to be much of a WTA schedule left, frankly. They canceled the Asian swing. I'd have to go back and look, but I think you might be right. I thought maybe the more interesting question from our comments was, is there any chance of Serena being competitive in a major again? We now have last year and this year, looking at her, even at her very best, I thought this is one of her better chances this year and last year at winning a Grand Slam, but just doesn't seem to have the physical capability. Now, my comment back was that they're going to have Wimbledon at some point, and she might just be able to serve her way through that. But do you think Serena Williams will ever win another Grand Slam?
I said no after the Australian Open when she lost to Wang in that long match. I obviously came back around for these particular circumstances that arose in Flushing Meadows, given the reduced quality of the field and having not played a great deal of tennis. Look, she's never played. The last couple of years, she barely plays. I don't think she's played at all after the US Open the last couple of years. It's a long way until Wimbledon. It's you have to wonder if she is questioning going on. You think about so since she's come back to the tour, but since she's returned, you think about the opportunities that have come up. You think about that Wimbledon final against Simona Halep. You think back to a couple of US Open finals against Osaka and Andreescu. She's been putting herself into these positions, and then they've been disappearing in front of her eyes. She's not as dominant as she was. This is arguably the best chance that she's had. It's 10 months away, Wimbledon. I don't see the French Open being something that's really going to appeal to her at this stage of her career, just because the longer the points, the more difficult it's going to become, and she's not going to be able to hit through people as well. I just don't. I'm not sure, and I don't think small tournaments are going to cut it for her now. How much more of her are we going to see?
You have to think, especially after the cramps in the Zachary match, the way that she looked today. And, part of it is maybe this is just a nice long comeback from having a kid. I mean, she looks much better this year than she did to me last year. But like we discussed, she's 38 years old. And I know that she is physically more capable than arguably just about anybody that's ever lived. I mean, I don't know if there's ever been a human being that's ever had as good of a physically gifted body as hers. So maybe she can go out and do something and find some sort of rejuvenation and get better at 39 and get better at 40. But I'm not counting on it. I'm optimistic, and maybe this is more what I want to happen than what is likely to happen. I don't think she's going to stop trying. She doesn't strike me as a quitter. And at the very least, she's a smart businesswoman. So she's going to keep playing tennis for as long as people are willing to watch her play tennis. But mentally speaking, if I'm her, I don't know how it would have come back this year. I really don't. Now, I don't have the killer instinct of these athletes. I am somebody that, if you handed me enough money where I'd never have to work for the rest of my life tomorrow, no one would ever see me ever again. Nobody. None of you. Not one single human being. I'd be gone. I'd be off the radar. I'd do nothing for the rest of my life. Now, so Serena Williams clearly is not that person. I don't think that she's going to quit. Now, I don't think we'll see her in 2020, but I think she's going to spend the next 3 to 4 months really thinking long and hard about whether or not she feels like playing the Australian Open if it happens.
And that's the thing. And why I asked this question, I just put the question up on Twitter as well, is that, will we see Serena on court again in 2020, or will we see her back on court again at all? If she had, hypothetically, work with me on this one, just say she had the record for most Grand Slams, and it was, hers and hers only. Is she still playing?
She might still be playing just Grand Slams. I think she is still playing. She strikes me as somebody that does love tennis. She loves the attention, I think. She loves everything that it does for her. Again, she strikes me as one of the athletes, and I think you and I are lucky to grow up in this, what I think at some point would be called the renaissance of athletes. If you start to look at her, you start to look at somebody like LeBron James, and those are the first two names that come to mind. But you look at them and you look at how they've expanded what it means to be a successful athlete. Serena Williams turning herself into a fashion person. She runs a very successful line of clothing. She does all sorts of other things. She supports tons of communities, has put a bunch of money to support African American rights and things like that, has put a bunch of money into the tennis community. You look at LeBron James, I mean, he spent as much time recreating the city of Cleveland. He has the high school everyone's heard about, where if you go and you graduate, you get full college. On top of that, he went back to his local community where he grew up, where they were going to have to shut down the grade school because there was not enough money. And he went back and gave them enough money where that grade school will be open and functioning for the rest of time. They're not even going to need another dollar from anybody. You start to look at what it means to be an athlete now. And even Naomi Osaka, somebody like that, I was floored to see her willing to withdraw and give up the points and money for winning that semifinal that she could have easily won over an opponent she was a big favorite over, but it was more important to her. When I look at Serena, I think that she sees things on a bigger scale. So as much as I think she's trying to chase after Grand Slams, I think she likes the spotlight. I think she appreciates what that means for her. But I agree with maybe your original question that if she already had the slam record, maybe she'd only just be playing slams, if at all. I think one of the more interesting situations is going to be when Rafael Nadal retires, especially the way he's talked during quarantine. It seems like he's just barely started playing tennis in the last week. He didn't seem to have played tennis while the stuff was going on. He threw himself into what was going on from a coronavirus perspective in Spain, into that and focusing on that more than tennis, which I thought was really interesting. So it's just a fascinating time to be around. And again, we've got arguably three of the best, if not the three best men's players of all time. We've got the best women's player probably of all time, and we get to watch them kind of wind down their clocks. It's really a fascinating time to be a tennis fan.
Now, another question following on from that with Serena. So, we talk about a lot of other players, and there have been a couple of examples across different sports of players going out on top and at the pinnacle. We think back to, I think it was 2015 Wimbledon. Serena defeats Muguruza in the final, and I think from that point there, she was 21-4 in Grand Slam finals across her career. We fast forward there, and she was able to win Wimbledon again in 2016 and 2017. Since she's come back, so she's had 4 opportunities to tie this record, and she's in finals, and she's lost all 4 of them. So, 2018 Wimbledon, she lost to Kerber 6-3, 6-3. She lost to Osaka 6-2, 6-4, the US Open. She then lost to Simona Halep 6-2, 6-2 in the final. And then Andreescu was able to get the job done 6-3, 7-5. So she's made the final 4 times in her quest to break or to tie this record. And she's lost all of them in straight sets. She's gone from, as I said there, 21-4 in Grand Slam finals at the end of 2015 after Wimbledon to now sit at 23-10 in Grand Slam finals, and hasn't been able to, in her, what have we got? It's 9 attempts since coming back to the tour after having a child. She's made 4 finals, a semi-final, a quarter-final, but it just looks like that. And I wonder, is that occasion late? Is it getting to her?
So maybe circling back to your question, if she's going to quit, I think she would have quit before this season, because you just laid it out. I mean, we have not seen her actually challenge for a slam. She continues to fall apart, despite being the favorite last year, despite being the second, third favorite, tied for the favorite this year in a lot of those slams. She gets far. She really does. She gets to the semifinals, she gets to the finals, and then it's exactly like what we saw tonight. She plays a good first set, and then she starts to have physical questions. The movement comes down. We saw the MTO for the ankle, which, again, you and I talked about it for at least a minute on this broadcast. We didn't see an injury. There was nothing serious that happened to her that indicated to either one of us that there was some sort of serious or new or different ankle injury. She just needed a break to get her ankle retaped. I mean, it's In a way, as much as it's fun to get a chance to watch her, it's also kind of sad and frustrating. I hope that there aren't too many new tennis fans for the last 2 years that, like, in 10 years, are going to be like, Serena was terrible. I saw her. No, this is the greatest woman to ever play tennis. At her absolute peak, there is not one single female ever to be born on this planet that could beat her at tennis. No matter how good Chrissy Everett thinks she is, no matter what you do, there's not one single woman that ever walked the face of planet Earth that could beat Serena at her peak at tennis. So be sure to remember that. If you are relatively new to tennis and you're like, whatever, she's no big deal, she's nothing crazy, cool your jets. You're not that cool. We were all in middle school. We all listened to terrible music when we were 13 and grew up. Someday, Snize, our buddy, will realize that Oasis is not the greatest band in the world, and Serena Williams really was that good. No matter how rough these couple of years have been for her, let's not lose focus on that. So, with that being very clear, I think you make a great point. She has not had success at these slams. They have not been close. There's not one single, like, you look at the match where she loses her mind against Osaka. That was not close. She was down a set. Osaka was beating her up and down the court. I was ashamed for Osaka that everybody remembers that match as the match Serena got kicked out of. I think that's how history is going to remember that, which stinks. But she was not close, and she hasn't been for a little while now. I think she has a chance to be competitive at Wimbledon, given her serve. I'm not totally writing her off, but I think the chances of Serena maybe breaking Maria Cort's record are slim to none at this point.
It'll be interesting to see how things unfold over the next probably 12 to 18 months, considering you're thinking about probably Wimbledon being that best chance, that that the pressure's going to build there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when we get to June, July next year. Now, before we wrap up the chat, this is something that we kind of mentioned a bit on Twitter earlier, and we've had a couple of chats about this in the past. And I'll just bring up a little heading on the screen here. There's been news out over the last couple of days around poor ratings for the US Open. And a lot of that is to do with, there's obviously other sports going on at the moment that wouldn't normally be taking place in other years. But one thing in particular that caught both of our attention, and I'll get you to talk about it a bit as well, is you think about the tension and how many eyes were on the third set of Jennifer Brady versus Naomi Osaka, and you think about that match reaching its conclusion, the amount of dead space between that match finishing and Williams versus Azarenka starting, let alone the dead space in the 15 to 20 minutes before a match that's scheduled to start at 7 actually starts. Is there something that can be done to actually make this a little bit easier to watch? But there's going to be people like myself. I'm going to watch it regardless, but I'm aware that there are people who, particularly when you listen to some of the analysts who are trying to critique and talk about matches, or will cross out to courts and random chats with people. The fact that things start late and there's enough dead space is an issue in itself. But I think you saw some things the other day from your perspective in the US that caught your attention that just wouldn't happen in other sports.
So I'll start with something that's going to maybe throw people off to where I'm going with this, but one of my favorite quotes of all time is a Mark Twain quote: "There are lies, damn lies, in statistics." I don't give a crap about any ratings number in the year 2020. People don't watch TV the same way they do ratings. They're still doing ratings calculations they did when there was 3 channels and the Nielsen thing meant anything. So anybody telling me that there's less viewership, like there was some statistic, there's 50% less people watching the NBA playoffs this year than there was in 2010, blows my mind. That's just an absolutely bullshit number between the streaming and the way that people are approaching watching matches. I don't care about that. Now, that said, the way that this U.S. Open has been shown in the United States is an absolute disgrace. Every single day, tennis starts at 11 o'clock at the U.S. Open. Coverage on ESPN, who owns the right. The only way that you can watch tennis, you can watch the United States Open, the biggest tennis tournament in this entire country, is through ESPN. Tennis starts every day at 11. ESPN doesn't start their broadcast until noon. Now, the most disgusting thing that happened the other day, it was maybe 2-3 days ago. I can't remember exactly who was playing. I think it was Demon Hour and somebody else.
Pospisil?
Maybe. There was 20 solid minutes of broadcast. during that time of broadcast, there were 3 games played by those 2 male players, and 0 minutes of tennis were showed. We watched 20 minutes of people talking. We watched 20 minutes of graphics behind interesting foliage. It's just like, what is, what tennis doesn't get to deserve to complain about people in the United States not caring if this is the way it's going to be presented. I know that everyone hates Bill Cosby, but there's a really great Cosby Show episode where one of his daughters brings home this boyfriend who turns out to be really nice, but she does it in the worst way. And he uses this analogy of taking the world's greatest steak, the world's greatest potatoes, and the world's greatest vegetables and serving it to him on a garbage can lid. That's exactly what I think of every time I watch tennis in the United States. If you have ESPN Plus, congratulations. You can watch every match 30 seconds behind. You can watch every match as an instant replay to what is actually going on. Congratulations. You can watch all sorts of former tennis players and random ESPN celebrities wearing nice clothes, sitting in beautiful chairs in front of foliage. You won't see any tennis, at least tennis that's interesting and actually happening. God forbid. It's how is where I live, how is the United States, how are people in general supposed to love this sport if it is so hard to watch it? You're a casual fan. We've got NBA, Major League Baseball. Tonight was the sports equinox, which for those of you who don't know, there's only been, I think, 19 times before tonight where Major League Baseball, the NBA, the NHL, and the NFL have played. Tonight was the 20th time. You've got all this competition. And ESPN and tennis seems to do nothing interesting to present it to us in a way that's different, to make it easier to watch. They seem to be, and again, I'm only watching from the United States. I hope people in other countries across the world have an enjoyable tennis experience. But at least if you live in the United States of America and you want to watch tennis, you're watching it 30 seconds behind, or you're watching people talk about what's going on. It's just, again, you're presenting me with the greatest meal on earth on a fucking trash can lid. Like, can we get our shit together? I don't want to hear anybody in tennis argue about people in the United States not watching tennis until we get a reasonable way to watch tennis.
I agree with all
full
this,
stop.
Except now I'm going to have to go back and figure out how to put a beep in for a couple of things within that.
I'm sorry. I try not to curse, but I was on a roll, and it's late here. Hopefully no one cares. My apologies if any children are listening. Don't use dirty words. But I think that necessitated the use of that word. I mean, it's disgraceful. It's absolutely disgusting that people like us that love the sport can be taken advantage of this way. Like, we got to watch this match tonight. Luckily, it was on ESPN proper. They labeled the right channel. They actually had the match on while it was playing. Oh, and they were showing us it, within a few seconds of actual live. There wasn't some sort of incredible delay where I can watch 3 points ahead on Flash Score.
And I think that's the thing. And it's what makes it so difficult so say us, for example, when we do these, because we're so bounded and you're not able to put any of the coverage, obviously, on the streams, which I completely understand. But, there are such delays in terms of, we're talking, and if I'm in a position where, so for example, I talk to a lot of people on Twitter and a lot of people contact via direct messaging around, particular matches or moments in matches, the issue arises is that basically if I want to watch tennis at the moment, I need to mute basically every conversation I'm having or talking about anyone with tennis because things are so far behind. And I understand why they're behind to an extent because of, taking advantage of, live scoring and live betting.
I could handle a point behind, but 30 seconds behind, 3 whole points behind, sorry, I can't understand, but sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
And look, it gets back to a point, and I'm trying to draw back, and it's the same issue I have with the Australian Open here, and when things are on here in Australia, and when it's in your own backyard, is that, I am actually, as a tennis fan, I'm interested in the first game of a second set. Right. I don't care what famous person's just been in a new TV show, or for the people who are in Australia who are watching this, I don't care what's going on in Summer Bay on home and away at the moment. I'd actually be interested to see. Funnily enough, the first game of a set has just as much weight as every other game in the set. And I understand that from an advertising standpoint, you need to actually, bring ads and ways into it. But, when you've got a product there, it's best to actually not just, piss it away by delivering it in a really inappropriate fashion, just because, oh, we're going to quickly cross over to so and so who's out in Garden Square and presenting. Oh, they're having a beer here, and this famous person here or there. Meanwhile, we'll go back to the tennis, and so and so's just lost their serve, and the whole complexion of a match has changed. It's Our coverage is better than your coverage by the sounds of things, and I'll agree. I think King Curios has just put that up in the chat as well. But there is so much that needs to be done, particularly, and you think about today, as you said, there was baseball on, there's NFL on, there's NBA on, and you think about the amount of dead time that is sitting around this tennis broadcast. It was supposed to start at 7. First match goes on at 7:15, I think, was the first ball was actually struck. You then think about almost 25, 30 minutes between matches. There are enough things in the world at the moment where people, your attention is going to be grabbed and taken elsewhere. It's just the state of how it is. If anyone's clued in and you look through anyone's social media feed, you had a moment there where everyone was kind of locked in, and anyone who was interested in tennis in the first instance was locked into that particular moment. And then you basically, as an organization and as tennis itself has gone, hey guys, we're just going to stop everything for half an hour. If you want to hang around, that's great. But look, we're basically giving you the opportunity to change channel and go, what else is on? And funnily enough, today, there's a lot going on.
Right? You're an American viewer. At this point, to be perfectly honest, people that live in this country don't watch a lot of tennis. It's something that the more affluent people play. It's something that they're more interested in. There's so much other stuff going on. If you're changing to tennis, it is a random thought you're having, like, oh, the U.S. Open's on. I've heard of that. Let me see if somebody's playing tennis. And instead, it's 3 people sitting in chairs and like some sort of weird background talking about nothing. It's just, there seems to be no ability to learn. You look at other sports. The NBA is running advertisements during while they're on the floor talking about play. They run the banners on the bottom. They know how to talk through stuff. My biggest problem the other day when they were doing, again, that 20-minute break with no tennis while tennis is being played, they wanted to set up the day. What better sport is there in terms of dead time, between points, between games and stuff to fill in? Like, why on earth do you need to fade away to this other group of people? You could talk about all that stuff while they're playing tennis. I mean, you and I do that. We did it the entire match. We spent 10 minutes talking about the NBA during the middle of a tennis match, and I don't think we missed anything of real interest. We do it all the time when Spread and Jorge are on here, and we do these broadcasts. But again, you watch, it's like, is no one watching other sports? Like, who's in charge of this? Why are we? It's the definition of insanity, as I've been taught, is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And that's what tennis is. Every single year, we get the same experience, and every single year, it's the same complaints that nobody watches. And I can't wait. 2021, we'll do it again.
That we will. Shall we finish our ranting there? I'm not sure if anyone found that of any use, but I found it quite therapeutic.
Oh, I could keep going. I could rant all day. It's, I saw some comments. Our buddy King Curios enjoyed that. If you pulled the string, I'll keep going, but I don't think we're going to get anything more productive out of that. And it's tomorrow actually where I am, but today for where you are. So I should probably go to bed.
So we might wrap it up there. Actually, I will just say one thing for anyone who is watching. Obviously, the last couple of months, I've kind of transitioned from having a subscription to going back to having everything for free. And part of that has been a lot of my posting I've done through a search engine called Public. Thank you to those who have signed up and made a free account there, because your clicks and going through to my articles actually helps in terms of my business and kind of, I'm looking over the next couple of months and into next year at trying to expand what I'm doing and try and give some opportunities to some other people, to be rewarded for the content that they created, because I think there's a lot of people out there and there's a lot of noise on social media, and I want to try and kind of work through that noise and find some people who can produce content and look to try and take that next step with Ace Previews, how it is at the moment. Signing up and clicking through on links and being a part of the conversation on that is going to go a long way to that being possible. So thank you to those who have signed up, and I know a couple have. It's been great to be able to kind of have everything. Even if results aren't great for a couple of days, I'm just enjoying having the ability to kind of have that freedom and flexibility with it. But with that, obviously acknowledging that when there is no subscription, the income that comes with that is obviously lacking. So trying to find other ways to try and increase exposure. And I want to get to a position where I can actually go to some other people and go, hey, would you like to come and write and do a little bit of work, under the umbrella of Ace Previews. So it's been great to those who, and I think those who have been able to, sign up. And look, it only takes 20, 30 seconds to sign up, but then, every time you click onto an article, it's a little step in the direction of trying to build things. And, I want to be able to get some respected, reputable people to kind of come along and be a part of the ride and to try and help people. I guess, I'm in a position now where I can kind of highlight people and to be able to bring people along and hopefully give them a little bit more exposure to, the people that deserve it. So, look, thank you to those who have signed up. As I said, it is free and it only takes 10, 20 seconds. And I'll pop a link in the bottom of the articles. And that's just something that I've tried to do that's a little bit different for this year. So thank you for that.
If I could turn that on its head, maybe just for a little bit, to think about it the other way, folks. If you really enjoy what we're doing here, if you enjoy what Ace puts out, again, somebody who's consistently and constantly writing up great tennis content, it's been hard to get for the last couple of years because he's had to charge people for it. And if you're someone that's paid, if you're someone that hasn't paid, now is the opportunity to engage in a way that takes no time, has absolutely no cost to you, and allows Ace to keep producing the incredible content you want for either less than you used to pay, or you actually have a chance now to get it for free. So this is a situation where everybody wins. This is one of the beautiful parts of the internet. We have a chance where Steve gets a chance to continue to keep creating great content and support people that do without having to charge you guys. So those of you who paid, get it cheaper, and those of you who never got it, get a chance to get it. So please continue to support that.
And yeah, look, it's been nice to kind of just deliver all this content a little bit more with a little bit more freedom. So hopefully that can continue. We might wrap it up there. We've just ticked over 2.5 hours on the live stream. Thank you very much for joining me.
I thought we were at least 3. What a quick match.
Yeah, well, remember, we didn't come on until all the dead space of the warm-up and everything was all done. So we came on straight into that first service game. So look, it works.
Hopefully someone at ESPN is watching.
Maybe not yet, but maybe I'll have to write. Maybe we'll get an article onto it. Maybe we can.
I'll just keep tagging them in tweets, and maybe they'll care. I don't know. Keep following me, people. Grow my followership, and ESPN will care more when I bitch and moan and complain and post absurd polls where every answer is 0.
Alrighty, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks everyone who's tuned in over the last 2.5 hours, who's come in and out. If you have any feedback or questions, comments, constructive criticism, let us know. We're happy to take it on board. I've had a few YouTube comments over the last couple of weeks that people have been quite abusive at the lack of actually putting the stream on our streams. Unfortunately, we can't do that.
It's illegal, folks.
Yeah, and we'd like to keep things legal where we can. So, look, thank you again for joining, and thanks again, Noops, for jumping on with me. And I'm sure we'll do this sometime soon, considering we've got a couple of Grand Slam semis tomorrow, a couple of Grand Slam finals, a Masters 1000 next week, as well as a Grand Slam taking place Monday week. It's going to be plenty of tennis. So it's a
shame for anybody else that lives in our lives, Steve. We're going to be very busy.
What a tough life, but wouldn't have it any other way. All righty. We will all talk to you again soon. Bye for now.
Thanks, everybody.